Chapter 13-15. What was a real master? It was a master who never went into battle himself. Just sending out a bodyguard was enough to shock people. Jun Changshao did it. 9 swords flew out and merged into one bodyguard. Fei Xue was a well-known figure in the mortal universe. His deeds were widely spread in the top circles. There was also Marquis Iron Robe. Although his strength was only at the lower level of the void-piercing realm, his reputation was not small. To put it bluntly, anyone who was locked in the 9 levels of hell as the main culprit had a reputation in the mortal universe. A starry sky navigation king with the strength of a marshal was very strong, right? Sorry, he could only be considered a little brother in front of them. Strictly speaking, he could only be considered a little grandson. Therefore, Jun Changshao did not make a move. He directly sent out 2 main culprits, which shocked the 2 middle-level void-piercing realms of the 9 Springs continent on the spot. The 2 began to seriously analyze his identity until they combined the latest news and came to a conclusion. That's right. Gou Sheng said proudly, "It's me." The 2 powerhouses of the 9 Springs continent almost fainted. The young man who could stand below and act cool without making a move was actually the culprit who blew up the Starry Sky Fortress and killed the fortress master. It's over, it's over. This time, they were in big trouble. They were not the only ones who were shocked. The generals and many powerhouses standing on the tower of Tianying City also widened their eyes. The news of the Starry Sky Fortress being destroyed had already spread in many top planes and continents. The Tianhe continent naturally heard about it, but they never thought that such a super ruthless person would appear in their own territory. It seemed that he was here to help. In a word, the main thing was that money was in place. Of course. Jun Changshao, who took the money, was also responsible. He said lightly, "From now on, the Tianhe continent is under my protection. Anyone who dares to provoke us is going against me, Jun Changshao." Before his identity was known, these words were despised. But now, understood. Understood. The powerhouse of the 9 Springs continent called Elder Dong hurriedly said, "We will withdraw from the Tianhe continent now. We will never invade again." If it was someone else, even if they were stronger, they might still fight. Now that they knew that the other party was the culprit who destroyed the Starry Sky Fortress, they could only cower instantly. Because if they dared to destroy an organization that maintained order in the mortal universe, why wouldn't they dare to destroy a plane? Scram! Jun Changshao said indifferently. The 2 middle-level void-piercing tier cultivators hurriedly slipped away, and the million soldiers also boarded the Starry Sky battleships and disappeared one after another. It could be said that the evacuation speed was extremely fast. They left. Heavenly Hero City is safe. After the murderous aura that shrouded the heavens and the earth completely dissipated, the soldiers and civilians in the city all cheered loudly. Jun Patriarch. The wounded middle-aged man walked down from the warship. Because he was too excited, he directly knelt down and said gratefully, "My Sky River continent will always remember your great kindness." Jun Changshao stopped him from kneeling down and said, "Taking someone's money, helping them avert disaster, no need to be so formal." Although this guy was greedy for money, he would definitely do things seriously after receiving benefits from others. Therefore, even if it was a weakness, it was also a strength. Here came the problem. If the one who gave the money was from the 9 Springs continent, would Jun Changshao help to bully people? Readers of this book who ridiculed the Mad Demon No. 1 Doryman would definitely say in this chapter that Gou Sheng was an unpardonable scumbag villain, but in fact, not only would Jun Changshao not help, he would even take the opportunity to extort them, because it involved the bottom line and the issue of principles. The 9 Springs continent retreated, and the Sky River continent returned to peace. Jun Changshao was not responsible for the aftermath, so he didn't even eat the specially arranged banquet and left with his disciples. After all, at his level, unless he wanted to satisfy his appetite, it was no problem to starve for a few years. The most important thing was, before leaving, he gave 10 million spirit stones and a large amount of martial arts resources. A gentleman loves money. Gou Sheng, who was standing at the bow of the ship, said loudly, You took it in the right way. The Sky River continent was invaded and could be destroyed at any time. Was it unreasonable to accept 20 million spirit stones to help resolve the crisis? Was there anything wrong with that? Not only was there nothing wrong with that, it was engraved in the hearts of others. A few days later, a stone statue of Jun Changshao was erected in Tianying City. There were also paintings of him and his disciples walking down from the worship, surrounded by a large number of prisoners, for the descendants of the Sky River continent to worship. Hero. Our great hero. The Nine Springs continent. The entire plain was shrouded in an austere atmosphere. At this moment, the ancient warship floated quietly in the sky above the Nine Springs imperial city, which represented absolute power. Jun Changshao sat at the bow of the ship, looking disdainfully at the world. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others stood with their hands behind their backs, their faces filled with determination. The prisoners locked in the pagoda of confinement had all come out. Some hung below the warship, while others squatted on the city wall with sinister smiles on their faces. The 12 prison wardens also appeared. They spread out around the city with their arms crossed, forming a circle. The cloaks with the word chivalry on them fluttered in the wind, and the solemn expressions of the admirals appeared on their faces. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. None of them released their cultivation, but the aura they emitted was like Mount Tai pressing down on the entire city, causing all the cultivators in the city to tremble in fear. Gulp. A middle-aged man in luxurious clothes with the demeanor of an emperor stood in front of the palace hall and swallowed with difficulty. His eyes flashed with intense fear. He was the ruler of the Nine Springs continent, the culprit behind the invasion of the Sky River continent. He was extremely vexed now. Why did he do such a thing? In the end, not only did he not gain any benefits, but he also attracted a ruthless person. Back then, the Starry Sky Fortress had sent a patrol to warn him. The scene was not too big, and the shock it brought was not very strong. Jun Changshao was different. He directly led the prisoners and the 12 prison wardens to the city. The pressure from his strength and aura was unprecedentedly strong. It was definitely enough to be engraved in one's heart. To put it bluntly, the Starry Sky Fortress was more conservative and traditional. Go Sheng was the exact opposite. He was as strong as he could be. He had to smash the enemy with a hammer. He had to smash the enemy's psychological shadow with a hammer. Have you thought it through? The Emperor of the Nine Springs continent collapsed. Jun Patriarch, 100 million ninth-grade spirit stones is too much. Jun Changshao impatiently interrupted, you don't need to explain. You just need to act. If you don't. He paused for a moment before continuing, then, I will personally order people to search the continent. Yes. Yes. The Emperor of the Nine Springs continent hurriedly said. If they searched the continent, wouldn't it be obvious that they were going to rob? If they took away all kinds of martial arts resources, the loss would definitely be more than 100 million. Hundreds of mainstay powerhouses died in the Sky River continent. If their homes were turned upside down, it was very likely that they would not be able to recover from this setback. After weighing the pros and cons, the Emperor of the Nine Springs continent endured the heart-wrenching pain and took out 100 million ninth-grade spirit stones from the national treasury. He only hoped that the other party would leave quickly and stop using the prisoners and the patrol wardens to suppress him. However, Jun Changshao took the money and did not leave. He continued to sit on the bow of the ship and said with a cold gaze, remember this. If the Starry Sky Fortress is gone, I will replace it. If anyone from any plane dares to do as they please in the mortal universe, they will receive eternal punishment. Chapter 13:16. The Eternal Punishment Order. This was something that Jun Changshao had thought of on the spot. In his initial plan, as long as this order was issued to warriors and planes, they would definitely be attacked by the Sect of all times. There were currently 12 of these tokens, and they were held by the deputy warden of Tianyuan Prison Pagoda, Zhao Daodu. Once it was issued, there would be 12 wardens in charge of enforcing it. Just as Jun Changshao boarded the warship and flew into the Nine Springs continent, the first Eternal Punishment Order was already stuck in the palace hall. In the future, whenever the Eternal Punishment Order was issued, unless all 12 tokens were used, the number of people would be decided by the tokens. Today's scene of the 12 wardens surrounding the city would not happen again. Understood, understood. The Emperor of the Nine Springs continent hurriedly said, "The Nine Springs continent will know our place from now on. We will never invade our neighbors again." Swish! The Eternal Punishment Order flew out from the palace hall and landed in Jun Changshao's hand. He said calmly, "I'll give you one more chance. If you do it again, you and the entire plane will be destroyed." Swish! 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 The prisoners and the 12 wardens returned to the warship and flew out under the watchful eyes of the warriors of the Nine Springs continent. Plop! Plop! When Jun Changshao completely merged with the universe, the killing aura in the entire plane dissipated. The Emperor of the Nine Springs continent and many other nobles and ministers sat on the ground, paralyzed. They were on the verge of breaking down. This guy is even more tyrannical than the Universal Fortress. Yes. Gou Sheng did not follow the rules of the Universal Fortress, where anyone who made a mistake would be arrested. Instead, he used the tokens to decide. If anyone went overboard, he would send experts to punish them. It was extremely tyrannical. No. On the way, Jun Changshao took out the name list given by City Lord Mo and said seriously, "I need to spread the news and let them know about the existence of the Eternal Punishment Order." The system said, "I understand now." The host created the Eternal Punishment Order to find an excuse for his blatant extortion. The various planes that came to help the Universal Fortress were unlucky. Because in the following time, the ancient warship broke through the space barrier and appeared at their doorstep. Do you remember it? Jun Changshao flashed 12 Eternal Punishment Decrees. Got it, got it. A certain big shot nodded and bowed. Jun Changshao said, "Of course, Jun's meaning is also very simple. He hopes that everyone can live in harmony in the future and let the entire mortal universe be filled with love." Jun Patriarch's painstaking efforts are truly admirable. In the face of absolute power, Gou Sheng could be said to be the ruler of the mortal world. Any powerhouse from any plane had to be respectful to him. Previously at the Starry Sky Fortress, pay up. The discerning planes immediately handed over enough spirit stones as soon as Jun Changshao opened his mouth and sent him off with a forced smile. He was finally gone. The demon was finally gone. However, all the major existential planes remembered the Eternal Punishment Edict in their hearts. They also realized that Jun Changshao was going to replace the Starry Sky Fortresses and manage the mortal universe. Snatching the job of the higher realm, this guy was really something. The planes that came to help the Starry Sky Fortresses were only the tip of the iceberg. Therefore, the Eternal Punishment Edict had to be spread by the powerhouses of the various planes. Therefore, the name of the Patriarch of the Starfall Continent Sect of all times began to spread throughout the mortal universe. To be able to destroy the Starry Sky Fortresses and replace them, he's definitely a powerful person. When I have time, I must pay him a visit. I heard that many planes are preparing to go to the Starfall Continent to sell things. Is that so? We can go and take a look. The underground black market was gone with the explosion of the Starry Sky Fortresses. However, the various planes still needed to trade, so they subconsciously chose to go to the remote Starfall Continent. As for why many continents were in a hurry to go there, it was also because Jun Changshao had not only explained the Eternal Punishment Edict in detail during his visit, but also introduced Strongbone Town and various preferential policies. In the face of such a direct hint, who would have the courage not to sell the heaven and earth treasures? It could be said that the Starfall Continent ushered in the era of the Emperor's control. After the destruction of the Starry Sky Fortresses, the mortal planes entered a new era under the rule of the Dog Emperor. Unfortunately, the new main mission was to bring the sect to the higher realm. If it was to dominate the entire mortal universe, Jun Changshao would definitely meet the mission criteria. Whoosh! Whoosh! The Starry Sky warships headed toward the unfamiliar Starfall continent. Before long, it would bring an unimaginable shock to the local residents. Sect of all times. Jun Changshao placed the Tianyuan prison pagoda underground and began to think about how to spread the eternal punishment edict. After all, the mortal universe was too big, and there were as many planes as the sands of the Ganges River. Simple. The system said, you can go to the dimensional battlefield. That makes sense. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. As a place where all the continents gathered, it was like a tavern with all kinds of people. It should be easy to pass the news to them and then spread it to other planes. On that day, Jun Changshao used the teleportation gate to enter the battlefield. He wondered if he could use this thing to achieve free passage between the upper and lower worlds if he ascended to the higher realm one day. The system said, this idea is very Go Sheng. The teleportation gate could enter the dimensional battlefield at any time regardless of the environment or the occasion. As long as people successfully entered, they would have many ways to return to the Starfall continent. So in theory, it seemed feasible. I'm just afraid that this thing will lose its effect when you reach the higher realm, the system said. It's settled. Jun Changshao said, now that you mention it, it will definitely work. The system roared, I'm not a reverse poison healer. I know. You're the most face-slapped system. The Starfall continent stronghold was still the same, with the floating mountain as the center and the 4 districts as support. The only difference was that the spatial barrier that was bitten by the space-time worm last time was still in the shape of a gap. It seemed that the higher realm had not repaired it. They had painstakingly sewn it and even sealed it, but it was easily bitten by the space-time worm. Who the hell could stand it? So the attitude of the higher-ups was that they did not care anymore. Without the stronghold's barrier defense, anyone could enter at will. However, after Jun Changshao left, even if the martial artists passed by occasionally and looked at the large-scale city and the few floating mountains, no one dared to muster the courage to enter, because the patriarch of the sect of all times was not to be trifled with. Thud! Jun Changshao walked in through the teleportation gate. However, before he could stabilize his body on the training field of the main peak, the fragrance of roses slowly drifted to his nose. Go Sheng turned his head stiffly and saw the graceful Rose Queen under the peach tree at the edge of the main peak. She flipped her black hair and smiled sweetly. Husband, you're here to see me. This woman had been in the dimensional battlefield recently. After all, she had to build the Soul Continent stronghold to a certain scale before she could leave. The major planes were wary of Madame Jun's identity, so Rose Queen was not in any danger on the battlefield. As for expanding the stronghold scale, it would only take time, so she would come here to play when she had nothing to do. Why are you here? Jun Changshao did not know that the higher realm had already left the Starfall continent stronghold alone. Rose Queen leaned her hands behind her back and walked over with her fingers hooked together. She smiled and said, the major planes are afraid of me and are avoiding me. Building a stronghold is quite boring, so I come here every day to wait for you. Every day? Jun Changshao was stunned. Rose Queen stopped in front of him, raised her head slightly, and raised her fingers. She asked, you're wearing a wig, right? Jun Changshao grabbed 2 tufts of black hair and pulled hard, almost pulling his scalp off. He roared, this is real hair, I'm not bald. Chapter 13-17. I still prefer your bald head. Why don't you shave it? Actually, you're not bad with hair either. I quite like it. Jun Changshao was on the verge of a mental breakdown. Ever since he met Rose Queen, he had been thinking about his hair. Big sister. Go see a doctor if you're sick. Rose Queen smiled. I believed that you would come visit me on the battlefield, so I waited at your base every day. As expected, I guessed right. There was a hint of pride in her words, as if she was acting coquettishly in front of her man. She was completely different from the noble and decisive woman she usually was. However, she guessed right about coming to the interdimensional battlefield, but the reason was wrong. Jun Changshao was not visiting his wife in name, but to use the battlefield platform to spread the eternal punishment order. Right. He remembered something very important, so he said seriously, I destroyed the interstellar fortress and replaced it. From today onwards, your Spiritus continent will not invade other planes. Rose Queen was stunned. You destroyed the interstellar fortress? She, who had been fighting outside for many years, had naturally heard of that organization that even the mortal planes feared. She heard that it was even related to the higher realms. Jun Changshao raised his head and said proudly, destroying an interstellar fortress is as easy as flipping my hand. Please don't be surprised. The system said, why is he so good at pretending? I'm not surprised. Rose Queen said seriously, I'm just a little surprised that my husband would take precious time to destroy an insignificant interstellar fortress. The system said, the host pretends, and the wife pretends. This is a perfect match. Jun Changshao said, I've created the eternal punishment order. Anyone who violates it will be punished by the sect of all times, so I hope you'll take care of yourself and not invade other planes. Because of their race's theurgy, the Spiritus continent loved to sneak into other planes and seize the opportunity to plunder martial arts resources. Since Jun Changshao wanted to control the mortal universe, he would definitely not allow such a situation to happen again. Moreover, even if he did not want to admit it, the outside world knew that woman was his wife. If he did not restrict her, he would definitely be questioned. Okay. Rose Queen smiled and said, I will listen to my husband. I'm being serious here. I'm also very serious. Jun Changshao roared, then can you move your eyes away from my hair when you speak? Can you not always raise your hand to grab it? All right. Queen Rose looked at him and said, the environment of our continent is terrible, and our resources are limited. If we don't go to other planes to search, we will eventually become dust in the annals of history. This isn't a reason for you to plunder and scrupulously. Jun Changshao said, if the environment isn't good, it can be changed. If there aren't enough resources, it can be cultivated. How to change? How to cultivate? When it came to serious matters, Rose Queen became serious, and a bitter smile appeared at the corners of her mouth. If she had a choice, who would like to go on expeditions everywhere? However, she had to bear the fate of the entire race on her shoulders, so she had no choice but to work hard after inheriting the throne. Jun Changshao said, the solution is to be thought of, not asked. Husband, help me think of a solution. Rose Queen really couldn't think of a solution, but she firmly believed that Jun Changshao would be able to help her. After all, he had relied on a god equipment to connect the collapsed soul continent together. We'll talk about it in the future. Jun Changshao said, I still have important matters to attend to. Changing the environment and cultivating resources was just something he said casually. He definitely didn't have any good ideas. Yes. The system said, in the system store. Scram. Jun Changshao needed to spread the news of the eternal punishment order, so he went to the Lingyuan continent to look for Kujin Nan. After some discussion, they decided to send out invitations to all the leaders of the strongholds on the battlefield. Why is that guy here again? He's not sending out invitations to extort money, right? Let's go quickly. I'm afraid he'll cause trouble for us again if we're late. After receiving the hot invitation, all the stronghold bosses hurriedly took action. Some of them had already prepared martial arts resources in advance. If the other party really wanted to extort money, they could only give it to him. Otherwise, why would they fight him head-on? It was still uncertain whether Jun Changshao could dominate the entire mortal universe, but there was no doubt that he could dominate the entire battlefield. After all, the few times he caused trouble here were all world-shaking. The next day, outside the stronghold on the Starfall continent, on the arena previously used for challenges, Jun Changshao stood with his hands behind his back. There was a gentle smile on his face. Rose Queen next to him was also dressed very formally. Although her aura was very strong, she was still deliberately restraining herself and didn't declare war. Jun Changshao was on the verge of collapse. He sent a voice transmission. Can you go down? I'm your wife. Shouldn't I be standing next to you? Rose Queen said. Jun Changshao was just about to speak when a realm boss cupped his hands and said, Jun Patriarch, why did you summon us here? All the stronghold bosses below the arena perked up their ears. Cough! Jun Changshao moistened his throat with a smile. Then, he said in a clear voice, this king has invited all of you here for one thing. And that is. He waved his hand and placed the 12 eternal punishment tokens on the table. Then, he said, I want you to remember these things. What is this? Everyone looked over and muttered in their hearts. Could it be some kind of treasure? This is the Eternal Punishment Order, Jun Chang said with a smile. It was created by the Eternal Sect. Its function is to punish anyone who has committed an unforgivable crime in the mortal universe in any plane. As long as they receive this order, they will be severely punished. All the stronghold bosses were a little stunned. Could it be that he wanted to use this token to control the entire mortal universe? Would the Starfall Fortress agree? All the stronghold bosses present had heard of this powerful organization in their own realms. Therefore, when Jun Changshao wanted to control the entire mortal universe, the first thing he thought of was this organization. Jun Patriarch, Kujinan said. As far as I know, there's a Starfall Fortress that created many laws. Those who violate them will be locked up in the 9 levels of hell. Did they allow you to do this? There's no more Starfall Fortress in the mortal universe because I've already destroyed it, Jun Changshao said calmly. What? Kujinan said, the Starfall Fortress was destroyed by Jun Patriarch? From the worry that appeared when he asked the question to the shock that appeared when he found out the truth, his performance was flawless. He was indeed Go Sheng's golden old partner in the planar battlefield. All the stronghold bosses were stunned at this moment. Apart from City Lord Imo, they had been on the battlefield all along and hadn't received news of the fortress destruction. Therefore, when they suddenly heard Jun Changshao say this, their hearts were definitely in turmoil. The Starfall Fortress had a supreme status in the mortal universe. Now that it had been destroyed by the Patriarch of the Sect of all times, then, he really had the right to replace it. Everyone. Jun Changshao said, please spread the news to your own realms and spread the news of the Eternal Punishment Order. When the stronghold bosses heard this, they instantly understood that the other party didn't gather them to think of a way to extort money. Instead, he wanted them to spread the news. That's good, that's good. The stone weighing on their hearts was finally lifted. Therefore, they all expressed their willingness to spread the news of the Eternal Punishment Order. Since that's the case, you may all disperse. Goodbye. When the powerhouses of the various realms left, they all sighed in their hearts. It's rare to be able to return safely from the Starfall continent without losing money. Chapter 13:18. Floating Mountain. Under the same peach tree. Rose Queen looked at the figure walking towards the whirlpool and complained, aren't you going to stay for a few more days? Happiness was always short-lived, because Jun Changshao had to leave after finishing his business. I still have important things to do. What things? Studying the great array of heaven and earth. Oh. Rose Queen smiled and said, then I won't disturb you. She seemed to be a little clingy to Jun Changshao, but in fact, she knew that he must have a lot of things to deal with when managing a sect. Not to mention, she also had to lead her clansmen on the battlefield. Love was only a small part of life. Most of the time, she had to focus on her career. Jun Changshao got up and walked towards the whirlpool. However, just as he was about to enter, he stopped with his back facing her and said, after leaving this time, I might not come in again, so. You don't have to come to the stronghold every day to wait. After saying this, he continued to walk until his entire figure disappeared into the whirlpool. Rose Queen said bitterly to herself, do I have to deprive you of even a little bit of my right to think about you? Whoosh! The wind blew, and peach blossoms flew everywhere. The seemingly gentle woman gradually became noble, and her eyes regained their former decisiveness and sharpness. When Jun Changshao was around, she gave people the feeling of a little woman. When Jun Changshao was not around, she was the queen who ruled the plain and led the clan forward. Falling Star Continent, Sect of all times. Jun Changshao had already walked out of the whirlpool, but he stood there in a daze for a while before saying in his heart, "I'm sorry." Yo. The system was rather surprised. The host's personality has changed greatly, to actually feel guilty towards his wife. Fuck off. I can already determine whether Rose Queen is an exclamation mark or a full stop in the host's heart. Jun Changshao couldn't be bothered with him. He returned to the study and began to comprehend the great array of heaven and earth. Many things had been dealt with. Next, it was time to focus all his energy on the sect's ascension. The large amount of martial arts resources that had been extorted from the various material planes had been invested in the operation of the sect, and the disciples' cultivation had improved once again. However, there was not much time left for them, because Jun Changshao had to complete the mission within 10 years. At that time, regardless of their cultivation level, they would have to follow him. It was impossible for Jun Changshao to keep the matter of the sect's ascension a secret forever. Therefore, he found a time to gather the upper echelons and core disciples for a meeting of the highest standards. What? Ding Xingwang immediately stood up from his chair and said in disbelief, Want to go to the higher realm? Even Elder Wei, who was usually the calmest, widened his eyes and said, Patriarch, are you joking? No. Jun Changshao interlocked his fingers and said seriously, I'm very serious. Jiang Ye, the Ning brothers, and the others all fell silent. The patriarch's expression was indeed very serious. In other words, they were really going to ascend to the upper realm. It was too shocking. Let me calm down first. Patriarch. Li Qingyang said, to ascend to the upper realm, one needs to be at least a martial emperor. Cultivation level is not a problem. I will think of a way. Jun Changshao said, you just need to be mentally prepared. Once you enter the upper realm, you will face an unprecedented test. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others looked at each other, the shock in their hearts growing stronger. Ever since they came into contact with martial arts, their goal was to become a martial emperor. Now, the patriarch suddenly wanted to bring them to the upper realm. This was something they did not dare to think about before. So we are finally going to ascend? He Wudi was relatively calm. In his opinion, a sect created by the 7 profound sage should not exist in the mortal world. It could only shine on a bigger stage like the upper realm. The Purple King was not too surprised. After all, he came down from the upper realm and was not unfamiliar with the upper realm. The only thing he was worried about was that if the dragon race found out about this, it would be troublesome. Patriarch. He said in a low voice, can I not go? The upper echelons and disciples of the sect must go, Jun Changshao said. What did it mean to ascend with the entire sect? It meant to bring the entire sect to the upper realm, including the chickens, ducks, fish, and geese raised by Lu Wancher. Sigh. The Purple King sighed and said, I am afraid that if the dragon race finds out about this, it will bring disaster to the sect. In the past, he always believed that he would never become a slave for the beast race and compromise in the sect of all times. Now, he truly regarded the sect as a part of him. Going to the upper realm was also for the safety of the sect, not for his own safety. Z had really changed. He had changed even more than Anyo. Caw caw caw. Suddenly, the sound of fingernails rubbing on the table could be heard, causing everyone to have goosebumps. They all turned to look and saw Yixingchen, who was sitting in an inconspicuous position, drawing marks on the table with his 10 fingers. His face was ferocious, and his eyes were fierce. Anyo. Jun Changshao said, what happened to you? Patriarch. Yixingchen looked up and said, when are we going up? From his tone, it was clear that he could not wait and was eager to ascend to the upper realm. It was understandable. After all, since his rebirth, Anyo's hatred for Empress Lingyao had never been extinguished. Instead, it burned even more fiercely. 10 years at the latest, Jun Changshao said. Swoosh! Yi Xingqian stood up and said, I will go and cultivate first. 10 years was not long. He needed to improve his strength faster in this limited time. Of course. Anyo naturally did not think that he would be able to take revenge on Empress Lingyao immediately after ascending to the upper realm. He did not even doubt that he would be slapped to death by her. However, a higher realm would definitely have a better cultivation environment. This was undoubtedly beneficial to him. Despicable woman, when we are both in the same cultivation environment, Yi Xingqian will surpass you one day. Yi Xingqian roared in his heart. Watching Anyo leave, Jun Changshao thought curiously to himself, who is this guy's enemy in the upper realm? After the incident of the Battle of Dragons and Tigers, Go Sheng knew a little about Yi Xingqian's secret. However, he did not know that he was the reborn Night Emperor, and even more so that he did not know that his enemy was Ling Yao, who was hailed as the first empress of all time. Since I am going to the upper realm, I will have to ask. In principle, Jun Changshao rarely asked about his disciples' privacy. However, since Anyo's enemy was in the upper realm, he had to find out more. If Anyo's enemy heard the news and came after him, the situation would be troublesome. Of course. The Purple King stole the dragon egg and offended the dragon clan. Damn it! Jun Changshao rubbed his temples and said in his heart, Anyo's enemy, Zi's enemy. I haven't even ascended to the upper realm and I already have 2 enemies in the open. Although Yi Xingqian's enemy was still unknown, it should be a single person. The Purple King had offended an entire clan. Especially if they knew that the 5-clawed dragon, which represented the imperial power, had become a lizard-like creature under his kind incubation, would they not come after him? Ascending to the upper realm. Jun Changshao held his head and said, it's very dangerous. Chapter 13-19. Speaking of the conflict between the Purple King and the dragon race, one had to talk about the little dragon. When Jun Changshao was thinking about how to complete the epic mission, it fell into a deep sleep again and showed no signs of waking up until now. Obviously. This was the sign of the 3rd evolution. After the meeting, Jun Changshao returned to the study and saw the little dragon curled up in its small nest, snoring. He muttered to himself, little guy, will you give me a surprise when you wake up again? As the first contract beast hatched by the incubator, the fire dragon had undergone a total of 2 evolutions, each stronger than the last. Therefore, Go Sheng was looking forward to the 3rd evolution and even more purification in the future. After knowing that the patriarch was going to bring him to the upper realm, the upper echelons of the sect began to actively prepare for ascension that would take at least 10 years. The core disciples also became more diligent in their cultivation, hoping that they would not be a burden to the patriarch. However, every time he thought of going to the upper realm, he would feel unreal. If outsiders knew about this, they would definitely think that Jun Changshao was crazy. After all, it was extremely difficult for one person to ascend, so how could he bring so many people with him? It was exaggerated. However, the key to ascending with the sect depended on the fortune-seizing array. There was no need to describe the understanding in this aspect. In a word, success or failure depended on the merchant city. A few months later, the falling star continent suddenly became lively because space warships were approved one after another and flew in as if tearing through space, bringing shock to the locals again and again. God! There are so many powerhouses similar to the 9 great martial emperors. What is going on? At first, the falling star continent cultivators thought that there was a strong enemy invading, but when they saw them coming in and slowly moving in the direction of Yangzhou in the southwest, they realized that they were overthinking. Have you heard? These cultivators from outside want to do business in Ironbone Town in Qingyang County, selling a lot of never-before-seen natural treasures. Not only have I heard of it, I have also been there. The inns in the town are all big shots. Even the people walking on the streets have the cultivation of Wu Huang or Wu Sheng. As more and more foreign existential plane experts entered the Falling Star Continent and Azure Sun County, Ironbone Town became the most dazzling existence. At first, the outsiders were forced to come here to do business because of Jun Changxiao's crazy hints. But when they saw so many cultivators from different planes gathered in this small town, they were instantly overjoyed. Don't underestimate Gou Sheng's power. It was no exaggeration to say that Ironbone Town was destined to become the largest trade market in the mortal universe even though it had just started. It was even bigger than the underground black market in the stronghold. There were many people. It was easy to mess up. This problem could not be seen in Ironbone Town. The warriors who entered this place were all very well behaved. They even lined up to buy breakfast. One of the reasons was that the sect of all times built by Jun Changxiao was right next to it. Another reason was that there were 12 wardens in Ironbone Town, so they would not dare to act recklessly. Jun Changxiao's approach to the so-called trade market was similar to the Starry Sky stronghold. Each stall would charge a fee, but the price would definitely be more favorable. Of course. All trades in Ironbone Town would also increase their prices accordingly. For example, Aunt Wang's Yunlai had the most obvious price increase. In the past, it used to be cash or artificial spirit stones. Now, it was directly charged with 9th-grade spirit stones. Even so, it was full every day, so they had to continue expanding. Cultivators from different planes poured in. There would be people buying and selling every day. The town began to feel crowded. Jun Changxiao ordered, Qingyang, expand according to the scale of a great sage's imperial city. Yes. Li Qingyang led the construction team to work that day. A few months later, Ironbone Town reached the scale of a super-large city. The construction expert page played a crucial role and was publicly praised by the owner. Jun Patriarch. On Ironbone Peak, Seoul Emperor Du Yinqing looked down at the majestic city below. Looking at the powerful cultivators from different planes, he said sincerely, "The once unknown falling star continent has become famous in the mortal universe under your leadership." Yes. Emperor Li said excitedly, "In the eyes of others, our falling star continent was unrated. Although we are not strong enough now, we have been recognized by the top planes." The other 7 emperors nodded. A large number of powerful cultivators from different planes sailed into different planes. With Ironbone Town as the trade center, they naturally would not be indifferent and often came here to take a look. Every time, they would be shocked. Jun Changxiao said, "I can't make the falling star continent stronger in a short time. I can only find another way to make this place the largest trade center in the mortal universe. I hope to profit from it and slowly strengthen myself." It took 10 years to develop a sect by cheating. It would definitely take more time for the unranked Starfall continent to become a top-tier existential plane. Thus, the only thing Gou Sheng could do was to find an opportunity. The rest would be up to them. Jun Patriarch's actions will definitely go down in history. Seoul Emperor cupped his hands and said. Jun Changxiao rolled his sexy eyes and thought, "Is this guy cursing me to die?" Everyone. He paused and said seriously, "In a few years, Jun has to leave the falling star continent for some matters. Before you ascend, I hope you can protect this place with all your heart." Jun Changxiao did not plan to let the 9 great martial emperors join the sect. One more person would be an additional burden. It was better to stay and protect their home. "Please rest assured, Jun Patriarch. We will definitely protect the falling star continent," the 9 great martial emperors said in unison. The falling star continent was home to Gou Sheng, and it was also home to them. Ironbone Town was a new trade center in the mortal universe. Jun Changxiao naturally would not rely on the stall fees to maintain his livelihood. After discussing with second young Master Tang, he officially released the healing pills and body-shaping pills. Instant recovery and physical enhancement. These 2 pills were still heaven-defying in the eyes of cultivators from high-level planes. So, after publicity, they quickly sold out on the opening day and caused a huge sensation. The powerful cultivators from other continents were all rich. As long as the pills were sold every day, all kinds of quality spirit stones would definitely flow into the falling star continent. It would go on for a long time. It would be difficult for them not to be powerful. However, Jun Changshao could not wait until that day because he had to ascend to the higher realm within 10 years. In the cafeteria, Jun Changshao sat down and placed a jar of drunken dreaming on the table. Do you want to drink from a bowl or from the jar? Yi Xingchen's mouth twitched. Patriarch, just say what you want to say. There's no need to get me drunk first. No. Jun Changshao said, you have to drink to your heart's content today. Okay. Yi Xingchen skillfully opened the lid and said, drink from a bowl. He was still scared and did not choose to drink from the jar directly because he heard from the alcoholic demon that the patriarch had once drunk him to the point of lying under the table. Come. Jun Changshao raised his bowl, and the forthright temperament of a Shandong person erupted. I'll drink. Do as you please. Gulp, gulp. Yi Xingchen also raised his bowl and raised his head to drink. Just as the two of them were happily drinking, Su Xiaomao walked out of the canteen and looked at junior brother Yi inside. He transmitted his voice, second senior brother, the livestock pen in the backyard has already been set up with a formation. The experts from the Spirit Beast Hall are also waiting solemnly. The sect of all times, which had always been peaceful, would only become heavily guarded when Yi Xingchen was drinking. Ah no. After drinking a bowl of wine, Jun Changshao finally asked with a serious expression, tell me your true identity. Clack. The peanuts between the chopsticks fell onto the table. Yi Xingchen's expression was a little sluggish. After a while, a bitter smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said, this day has finally come. Actually, after experiencing the battle of dragons and tigers, he had a premonition that his secret would be exposed. Who would have thought that the patriarch would only ask him today? Ah no. Jun Changshao said seriously, I need to understand your past and grievances so that I can make the corresponding arrangements after ascending to the higher realm. Swoosh. Yi Xingchen filled his bowl with wine and raised his head to finish it. Under the crazy stimulation of the wine, he held the bowl on the table tightly and finally mustered the courage to say the biggest secret in his heart. I'm Night Emperor. Damn. Jun Changshao immediately stood up and said with an exaggerated expression, so you're the unlucky guy who was killed by his own woman. Chapter 1320. Fuck. So you're the unlucky guy who was killed by his own woman. This sentence petrified Yi Xingchen instantly. His heart cracked. The most painful thing in the world was to reveal one's unbearable secret. He thought he could seek comfort, but the listener stabbed him in the back. What kind of person is this? Is it too late to take back what I said earlier? Swoosh. Yi Xingchen refilled his cup and drank it clean. He wanted to get drunk. He wanted to escape. However, he did not know what was wrong today. The wine was still the same, the taste was still the same, but the more he drank, the clearer he became. The more he drank, the more he remembered the past. Drinking to drown one's sorrows made one even more sorrowful. Ah! Yi Xingchen yelled and picked up the jug to drink. He drank it all in one gulp. Only then did he place his hand on the jug with blurry eyes. His spirit and figure were extremely dispirited and depressed. Yes. I'm one of the 10 great martial emperors, but I died in the hands of my own woman. This is a stain that the world will laugh at forever. This is a scar that can never be erased with time. Just as Yi Xingchen was on the verge of a mental breakdown, Jun Changshao put a hand on his shoulder and comforted him. The past is the past. Now we have to look forward. Come. We won't go home until we're drunk. Actually, after Jun Changshao found out about Yi Xingchen's true identity, he was not too surprised because many things suddenly became clear. A long time ago, he had speculated about Anyo's identity with the system and knew that he had a mysterious heart technique. This corresponded to the Taishen Sutra that Night Emperor had obtained in his past life. When he did not know the truth, he thought it might be complicated. When he found out the truth, he realized that things were actually that simple. Night Emperor died, and Anyo lived. A former martial emperor, and now a disciple. As for Yi Xingqian's enemy in the upper realm, Jun Changshao did not need to think to know that it must be Ling Yao, who was known as the first empress in history. Then, another mystery was solved. That year, during the finals of the Dragon-Tiger battle for hegemony, the palm print that pressed down must have been done by that woman. However, there was still a mystery that could not be solved, and that was how Jun Changshao managed to withstand the power of the upper realm. Could it be that, as the system said, he really relied on his face? This would eventually become an unsolved mystery in the history of the Starfall continent. What? Junior brother Yi is Night Emperor, one of the 10 great martial emperors who fell several thousand years ago. Oh my god, this news is explosive. The greatest taboo for the rebirth of a powerhouse was to be known by others. Aonyo was not only known by others, but also by the entire sect. It could be said to be one of the most tragic cases in history. Of course, his fellow disciples did not ridicule him, but instead worshipped him. No wonder junior apprentice brother Ye's cultivation rose so quickly. It turns out that a former top powerhouse was reborn. Li Qingyang said in realization. Speaking of the time when they entered the sect, Su Xiaoma and the others were earlier than Yi Xingqian. In the end, Yi Xingqian surpassed them and always occupied the position of the strongest disciple. In the beginning, Li Qingyang thought that the reason why his junior apprentice brother was stronger than him was because of his hard work in cultivation, and because he almost did not care about his life. Now that he thought about it, even if Yi Xingqian fell, he was still a martial emperor in his previous life. Oh my god! Su Xiaoma said in surprise, I actually dared to beat up a martial emperor in the past. When he forced Yi Xingqian to enter the sect, he was ordered by the patriarch to beat him up many times. Now that he thought about it, he was fucking proud. After all, who in the martial disciple realm dared to beat up a former martial emperor? Zhao Daodu, who had been imprisoned with the big shots of various realms, might have expressed his dissatisfaction. To be honest, if it was 2 years ago and Yi Xingqian revealed his true identity, it might have caused a huge uproar. But now, although the sect knew, they would only be surprised because there were many martial emperors in the confinement pagoda. Moreover, even the current 9 great martial emperors had to worship the patriarch. There were also void-piercing realm powerhouses from various realms coming in and out of Ironbone Town. Their horizons were broadened. They naturally became accustomed to many things. Yi Xingqian dared to reveal his identity because the sect's strength was already extremely strong. Otherwise, he would not have said it even if he was beaten to death. On this day, the livestock pen and spirit beast peak were heavily guarded. However, Yi Xingqian did not make a scene after getting drunk. Instead, he sat on a rock on the main peak until daybreak. His eyes never left the sky, and his mind was much clearer than before. After all these years of rebirth, hatred had always filled his body. He could only vent it on cultivation. After saying it yesterday after getting drunk, even if it was just a sentence, it made him feel unprecedentedly relaxed. It was as if his soul had been completely sublimated. Ah no! Jun Changshao was squatting on a tree behind him. He plucked a fruit and took a bite. Your enemy is a little tricky. After ascending to the higher realm, you must be calm. Do not do anything rash. After learning about Empress Ling Yao from the 9 martial monarchs, his conclusion was that she was a very scheming woman. Even if she had only ascended a few thousand years ago, and her strength might not be that strong, but if she wanted to take revenge, she had to be careful. I will endure, Yi Xingqian said. During these years of cultivation in the sect of all times, Anyo had changed a lot. Although his arrogant personality was hard to change, his pride had long been smoothed out by reality. Otherwise, he would not have entered the Lingyan Pavilion. After the battle of dragons and tigers, you wanted to leave the sect. Were you worried that Empress Ling Yao would seek revenge? Jun Changshao asked. That's right. Yi Xingqian was not worried about himself. He was worried that he would implicate the sect of all times. In fact, from then on, he had already regarded himself as a member of the sect. I have always emphasized that I will be a member of the sect of all times for life. Not even a day less, Jun Changshao said seriously. So if there is trouble, we will face it together. Yi Xingchen fell silent. Jun Changshao said again, when we reach the higher realm, if my strength allows, I will bring you and your fellow sect members to settle the score with Empress Lingyao. I will let her know. He paused, his eyes cold. No matter the past, present, or future, no one is allowed to offend the sect of all times. He had made his stand. The sect of all times would take on the hatred of Anyo's past life. Brother Yi. In the distance, Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuiji, and the others shouted, we will always be with you. Yi Xingchen lowered his head and said, idiot. Although he said that, his heart was extremely warm, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Yes. He died a coward in his past life. But in this life, he was able to meet the patriarch, a fellow sect member who treated him like his own. What was there to be discontent about? I am not alone. I am really not alone. Empress Lingyao. Just you wait. When my sect and I ascend to the higher realm, we will settle the old and new grudges together. Snap. On the opposite side of the mountain, Li Tiantian found a good angle and pressed the shutter button. A photo with Yi Xingchen as the main focus and the patriarch and his fellow sect members as support was released. Brother Anyo. Hui who was standing in the female disciple's residence, had tears in her eyes. She already knew about Night Emperor's rebirth, and could finally confirm that this extremely unfamiliar person was no longer her brother Anyo. Sister Hui. Lu Wancher and Yao Menjing came from behind, wanting to comfort her. I'm fine. Hui wiped away her tears and said with a smile, I've thought it through. He is Yi Xingchen, brother Yi, not my fiancé, Pei Anyo. Chapter 1321. Yi Xingchen, who had drunk a whole jar of drunken stupor, did not go to Spirit Beast Peak. This was quite surprising. People would eventually change and grow. By revealing his identity, the once proud and aloof Night Emperor could be considered to have truly taken a brand new step. As for Anyo, he would still use it in the future, but it was just a name. There was no other meaning to it. Hui had also thought it through. From now on, she focused on martial arts cultivation, and in her heart, she still loved her late fiancé. This can be considered a perfect ending, Jun Changshao murmured. He and his disciples had tried their best to matchmake Yi Xingchen and Hui. Now that the truth was out, they realized that the two of them belonged to two different worlds. Empress Lingyao. Jun Changshao stroked his chin. She's also a strong opponent. We must be careful after ascending. Little brother. The white Rakshasa took a sip of tea. This woman is not simple. Oh? Jun Changshao asked, Big brother, have you heard of her? The black Rakshasa said, the person in charge of the planar battlefield this time is Empress Lingyao. To be entrusted with such an important task by the Realm Hall, she must be very capable. Person in charge? She's in charge of all matters in the planar battlefield. Fuck. Jun Changshao's eyes flashed with anger. Since that woman was in charge of the planar battlefield, the punishment he had suffered earlier must have something to do with her. In that case, not only did she have a grudge against Yi Xingchen, but she also had a grudge against him. The first empress of all time. Jun Changshao sneered in his heart. The day I ascend to the higher realm will be the day your doomsday begins. This was a thorough arrangement. Big brother. Jun Changshao asked, this Empress Lingyao, how strong is she now? The white Rakshasa hesitated for a moment. We've only heard of her. We've never seen her in person, so we don't know how strong she is. Little brother. The black Rakshasa, on the other hand, said, although the upper realm also pays attention to one's realm and strength, it's actually more important. He paused and said, connections. Big brother, are you saying that Empress Lingyao has a wide network of connections? Jun Changshao asked. The Black Rakshasa said, "The World Hall is the most sacred organization in the upper realm. Not just anyone can enter it, and not just anyone will be entrusted with the important task of supervising the planar battlefield." Jun Changshao understood. The strength of this Empress Ling Yao was not important. What was important was that she had connections and connections. In other words, the Purple King's enemy was the entire dragon race, while Yixingqian's enemy was likely to involve many seemingly unrelated factions. Of course. The Black Rakshasa said, "Little brother, your connections aren't weak either. Just your identity as Jinren Tonggu's personal disciple is enough for you to do as you please in the upper realm." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched slightly. "I also hope that I can do whatever I want in the upper realm, but the point is, it has nothing to do with Jinren Tonggu." No. Jun Changxiao said to himself, "Even if it has nothing to do with me, I'll have to find connections. When I go to the upper realm, I'll first meet Jinren Tonggu and get myself an awesome identity." Heaven knew if this was the case in the higher realms of the universe. Middle-level void-piercing realm cultivators were as common as dogs, and upper-level void-piercing realm cultivators were everywhere. Since he was new here, he had to first develop himself. Big brothers, Jun Changxiao said weakly, "Is this master of mine powerful in the upper realm?" "Very powerful." The Black Rakshasa said with a look of admiration, "Whether it's strength, identity, or status, he's definitely above the World Hall." At this time, if Jinren Tonggu himself was standing next to Go Sheng, he would definitely go through the apprenticeship process. After all, his thigh was thick enough and his leg hair was thick enough. It would be super comfortable hanging on it. "Big brothers, can you tell me more about the upper realm?" Jun Changxiao remembered that every time a new map was opened, the first few rounds of the game were all, "Who am I? Where am I? Who's beating me?" This time, he was going to the upper realm. He definitely needed to understand it in advance. Even if he couldn't go in and fight, at least he couldn't turn into a box as soon as he landed. The Black and White Rakshasa began to popularize the upper realm. There weren't many spoilers in terms of content. In the future, there would be introductions in the main text, gradually unveiling the layers of mystery of the new world. Patriarch. After a few days of careful consideration, Yixingqian still came to the study. "What's the matter?" Jun Changxiao asked. After a moment of silence, Yixingqian said, "I've cultivated the Taixuan Bible. That's why I'm ahead of Senior Brother Li and the others." "I know. Not to mention hearing it from the Nine Heavens Martial Emperor, just taking Lu Qianqian to the Taixuan cave abode and seeing, right?" Jun Changxiao said, "As a member of the Sect of all times, you must have manners. In the future, when you visit scenic spots and historical sites, don't just throw rubbish and carve random things." Yixingqian was stunned. Was he saying that when he went to the Taixuan cave abode and obtained the Taixuan Sutra, he got carried away and casually carved the words, "Night Emperor was here," on the wall? "Patriarch. You've been to the Taixuan cave abode too?" Jun Changxiao said, "Not only have I been there, I've also erased the words you carved on the wall." "Bullshit." The system roared, "You only erased one word, then added another. The Taixuan cave abode is full of danger. Patriarch, you must have spent a lot of time there, right?" Yixingqian still had lingering fears when he recalled the scene before he entered that year. "It was all right." Jun Changxiao said, "It took about 2 hours to go back and forth." 2 hours? Yixingqian suddenly opened his mouth, the dignity in the depths of his heart falling away bit by bit. Jun Changxiao didn't know that his casual words would shatter his disciple's dignity to the ground. He returned to the topic at hand and said, "Why did you mention the Taixuan Sutra for no reason?" Yixingqian adjusted himself from his state of sorrow and said solemnly, "I'm indebted to Patriarch for all these years. I'm willing to share this Heart Sutra with my fellow disciples." Holy shit! Night Emperor changed greatly. He actually took the initiative to hand over the Heart Sutra to the sect. Jun Changxiao was also a little surprised, but a smile quickly appeared on his face. He walked in front of him and patted his shoulder, saying, "I'm very pleased that you have such intentions. But," he paused and said, "everyone has their own unique opportunities. The Taishan Sutra is yours, so it's yours. There's no need to share it with your fellow disciples." This, Yi Xingchen was a little embarrassed. He had seriously considered it for a few days before finally making the difficult decision to share the Heart Sutra. Since the patriarch didn't want it, it was really, for the best. Of course. At this moment, Jun Changshao added, "Although the Taishan Sutra is good, it can't be compared to the Heart Sutra of the sect." Crack! Listen, it was the sound of a heart breaking. Listen, it was the sound of Anyo's dignity being shattered. Jun Changshao's words once again dealt a deep blow to Yi Xingchen's heart, but in fact, strictly speaking, it was really the case. After all, with the Taishan Sutra, he didn't see the other party's realm being much higher than Li Qingyang's. This thing was similar to the Taishan Ice Heart Sutra, it was a dispensable existence. If one had the time, it would be better to cultivate the 5 elements heavenly reflection technique or other heart sutras. The system complained, "The Taishan old man wants to beat someone up." Chapter 13:22. Taishuan's 2 above divine mantras were not suitable for the disciples of the sect of all times at the moment because they had been cultivating the 5 elements heavenly reflection mantra since the beginning. Therefore, Jun Changshao would not consider popularizing Yi Xingchen's mantra manuals. After all, mantra manuals did not matter how much one cultivated, but whether one was proficient in them. Jun Changshao was quite pleased that this proud man, who had once disagreed with the sect, had taken the initiative to offer his own martial arts. "Oh, right." Before Yi Xingchen left, Jun Changshao asked, "Do you remember the heaven and earth creation formation recorded in the Taishan Sutra?" It did not matter whether he learned the manual or not, but it would be best if he could find the formation. "There is a formation recorded in it," Yi Xingchen said, "but I did not remember it." After he obtained the Taishan Sutra, he had only memorized the mantra and briefly flipped through it. He had been tricked before he could cultivate it. Fine. Without the formation diagram of the other manual, Jun Changshao could only continue to focus on the second half of the Taishan Ice Heart mantra and study it without sleep or food. The disciples of the sect cultivated as usual, and Ironbone Town became more and more lively. However, none of this had anything to do with him. He truly did not care about the outside world and only focused on studying. As for the mortal universe, the news about the falling star continent and the patriarch of the sect of all times was fermenting and spreading. The major planes gradually learned about it and realized that this was a super powerful person who had replaced the starry sky fortress. They could not afford to offend him. Little Cold Village. The children fought to stand outside the walls and tiptoed to look into the courtyard. At this moment, the entire village was protected by the experts of the Extreme Coldness Palace and other sections. In the simple courtyard, Li Qingyang looked at his beloved woman affectionately and said, "I'm here to pick you up today." Qingyang, Sister Qiao, was picked up as soon as she opened her mouth. "No matter what the reason is, you have to come with me today." Li Qingyang looked like a domineering CEO. Su Xiaoma, who was standing outside the village, had a gratified expression on his face. He thought to himself, second senior brother was too old-fashioned in the past. He could have just taken away the woman he liked. Obviously, for the steady Li Qingyang to be able to do such a thing, he must have been instructed by him. Su Gosheng. If you have time, teach your Jun Gosheng. Swish. Under the gazes of the villagers, Li Qingyang hugged the woman he loved deeply and turned into a stream of light, flying into the endless sky. He's flying. Sister Qiao is flying. The children opened their eyes wide and shouted. Who? The palace master of the Extreme Coldness Palace let out a long sigh of relief and said, "Our mission can be considered completed. There's no need to send a large number of soldiers to guard the place every day. Thank you for your hard work." Su Xiaoma walked over and handed over an interspatial ring. "Here are 100 healing pills and 100 body-shaping pills. Jun Changshao was worried that something might happen to Sister Qiao, because she was in Lu Prefecture in the northeast. Hence, he had asked the major sects to protect her 24/7. Now that she was gone, he would definitely give her some benefits. After all, he could not lose his way. Thank you. The palace master and the others received the items and were overjoyed. Recently, the experts from various realms had entered the falling star continent on flying warships. The prices of healing pills and body-shaping pills had soared. Jun Patriarch gave them so many. He was simply too generous. Qingyang City. Li Qingyang hugged Sister Qiao, and flew over. He landed in front of the Li clan's courtyard and said seriously, "Father, I want to be engaged to Qiao, I want the whole continent to know." The Li clan master, who was sitting in the study, sighed and said, "You have grown up. You have the right to decide anything." In the past, he did not agree to this marriage. Now that his son was a half-saint and the second disciple of the strongest sect in the falling star continent, he could naturally decide his future. "Thank you, father." Li Qingyang looked at the shy Qiao, in his arms and said affectionately, "I will fulfill my promise back then and tell the whole world that only I, Li Qingyang, am worthy of you. You are not worthy of Li Qingyang." This was a man's responsibility. Scumbag Go Sheng, come out and take a beating. The next day, the news about the engagement of the second disciple of the sect of all time spread throughout the falling star continent. All the major clans, factions, and organizations received the invitations. Patriarch. One of the upper echelons broke down. The sect of all times has at least 100,000 disciples. Everyone's engagement has to be grand. If we just follow along, we will probably go bankrupt. The patriarch wanted to cry but had no tears. What else can we do? The invitations have already been sent. If we don't go, we will definitely be criticized. The only thing that comforted the major factions was that those who received the invitations could use the teleportation array for free. Hence, they did not have to travel long distances. They only had to bring gifts. Not all the major clans and factions were sad after receiving the invitations from the sect of all times. For example, Huyang City's AI clan and Sun City's Song clan were happy and proud. One of them had a long-term relationship with Jun Changshao, while the other was a disciple of the sect. To be sent an invitation was definitely a great honor. Many years later, when these clans took out the invitations that they had kept for a long time, they would naturally brag about it and attract the envy of others. However, the most miserable clan was Liang City's Shao clan. This clan had fallen from a first-rate clan to a second-rate or third-rate clan in Azure Sun County in just 10 years. They were even on the verge of falling into disrepute. The reason for all this was that their businesses were sanctioned and they were mocked by others all year round. Some people would ask who had poisoned Xiao Ziji's body. Actually, there was no need to investigate further because the Shao clan's first elder had suddenly died a few years ago and completely disappeared. 3 days later, Li Qingyang and Sister Qiao completed the engagement ceremony on the Eternal Sect's main peak's martial arts practice field, witnessed by the elders of various sects and clans from all over the world, as well as the cultivators from various cities. At the banquet at night, Yi Xingqian placed a few jars of drunken dreams on the table and raised his eyebrows at Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others. He said proudly, "No one is allowed to leave. Let's fight until dawn." "Afraid of you?" Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others rolled up their sleeves. When the banquet ended, they were all put under the table. Only Anyo sat calmly and drank another bowl of wine. He said disdainfully, "A bunch of trash." Although Jun Changshao was in charge of Li Qingyang's engagement ceremony, he only showed his face during the ceremony. He spent all his time studying the fortune array. A year later, a mountain in a certain county suddenly collapsed. A stream of light broke out of the ground and entered the body of a young man. Before he could start to deceive, he was mercilessly smacked in the face by the flat mouth. He was sucked into the vacuum cleaner before he could struggle. Caught another one. Jiangya threw the vacuum cleaner into the space ring and continued to release his essence spirit. Then, he locked onto a certain area and said to himself, let's not wait for them to wake up. Let's just drag them out directly. The 8th Hall Master and the 9th Hall Master of the Soul Clan were mercilessly dealt with without even showing their faces. At this point, the 9 Soul Clan experts who had harmed the falling star continent back then had all experienced the function of the magically modified vacuum cleaner. They were thrown into the Tianyuan prison pagoda and trained by area. 2 years later. Due to the existence of Ironbone Town, the Azure Sun County's economy developed rapidly. Under the new rating, it became the strongest county in the falling star continent. The strength of the southwest Yangzhou also rose. 3 years later. The super teleportation network that the Sect of all times had invested in and built was fully opened in the falling star continent. It could be said that it covered the entire continent and could teleport anywhere. It could even be said to be a great project that would benefit the future generations. 4 years later. 5 years later. No matter how much time passed, Jun Changshao had always been studying the fortune array. He rarely appeared in the sect, let alone in the outside world. Creak. 9 years after the new main mission appeared, the stone door that was covered in cobwebs finally opened. Jun Changshao walked out from inside. Under the reflection of the sun, his head was shining brightly. Studying the array consumed a lot of brain power. Therefore, Go Sheng had really gone bald all these years. Chapter 1323. Over the years, Jun Changshao had gone further and further on the path of cheating. Only when researching the fortune of heaven and earth formation did he rely purely on his own efforts and willpower. He even made himself bald. He was bald. The formation had also been researched. However, Jun Changshao was not sure if the formation of the fortune of heaven and earth formation could allow the sect to ascend. Don't worry. The system said, the host still has a lot of contribution points. If you really can't do it, you can just go to the store. Anyway, you're used to cheating, no one will say anything. Scram. Jun Changshao was not reluctant to spend money, but if he could rely on the fortune of heaven and earth formation to ascend, he would undoubtedly save a lot of contribution points and at least have some confidence in entering the upper realm. To put it bluntly, he was afraid of being bullied in the new world. Start the formation. Jun Changshao flew up and suspended in midair. With a wave of his hands, thousands of light spots poured out and were placed around the sect, presenting formation flags. This technique is amazing. Jin Dejuan was amazed. It was as if the formation was placed casually and freely. It was enough to show that the patriarch's understanding of formations had reached the peak of perfection in these few years of seclusion. Of course. Even the ancient formation emperors would be overshadowed in front of Jun Changshao. Whoosh! Whoosh! Light and shadow diffused and poured in midair. Lines gathered between the formation flags and then began to connect with each other. In Jun Changshao's sea of consciousness, the layout and lines of the fortune of heaven and earth formation appeared crazily, and his entire person entered an extremely high realm of formation. 2 days later. When the last line was connected to the formation flags, the entire formation was instantly completed. First, it exploded with light, then it gathered from all directions to form a light barrier that was almost solid. What's this? The disciples who were shrouded in the barrier began to guess. Could it be a brand new sect protecting formation? Phew! Jun Changshao landed on the main peak and wiped the sweat from his forehead. His face was slightly haggard. This is so fucking tiring. The fortune of heaven and earth formation was set up. In terms of scale, it was larger than the one set up by Empress Ling Yao because it covered the entire Iron Bone Mountain. However, it was very difficult to set it up. After resting for half a day, Jun Changshao began communicating with the 5 elements in his body. Next, 5 streams of light of different colors flew out and fused into the magic array, filling up the grooves that he had prepared beforehand. The great array of fortune of heaven and earth was like a platform. Once it was set up and stabilized, it would depend on the strength of the 5 elements. Swish! The formation that enveloped the sect gradually weakened and then disappeared. Jun Changshao did not initiate the ascension process right away because he still had to deal with the aftermath before leaving. For example, who would be in charge of the falling star continent after the entire sect ascended? Who would be the chief of Martial League? There was also the Heaven Origin Soul Suppressing Pagoda. This item was to be brought to the upper realm, but the prisoners and the 12 wardens inside had to be properly settled. Boom! Boom! After a night, the mountain peaks near Iron Bone Mountain gradually rose. Li Qingyang received the order and led the construction team to start construction on the mountain. Half a month later, a rather large building complex was built. According to Jun Changxiao's plan, this would be the Martial League's headquarters. The 12 wardens would be in charge of all daily affairs. The 9 underground floors under the mountain would be used to hold all kinds of prisoners, and layers of high-level formations would be set up. With the ZZ and the others in charge of the falling star continent, no one would dare to cause trouble. Many planes were even praying that they would not be targeted by the Eternal Punishment Order. The safety of his home had been well settled. Next, Jun Changshao began to consider whether he should bring anyone other than the sect with him. Patriarch Jiang Ye said, "My sister wants to accompany Aunt Wang to run the inn." Jun Changshao said, "Then I won't force you." Patriarch Li Qingyang said bitterly, "Qiao said she's just an ordinary person and is willing to stay in the falling star continent." Okay. Ascending to the upper realm was not a vacation. If these relatives of his disciples were willing to stay in the mortal universe, Jun Changshao would not force them. After all, who knew if they would die in the upper realm? Li Qingyang and Jiang Ye were a little depressed. Once they went to the upper realm, it would be difficult to come down. Wouldn't they be separated from their relatives forever? Jun Changshao seemed to see through them. He comforted them, "Don't worry. As long as you can go up, you can come down. Aren't the black and white guardians a good example?" Right. Li Qingyang and Jiang Ye were suddenly enlightened. Ascending to the upper realm was as difficult as ascending to the heavens, but coming down from there was still a possibility. The Purple King, He Wudi, and the Black and White Double Devils were classic examples. However, their cultivations were suppressed and could not reach their peak. Patriarch Su Xiaomao walked over excitedly and said, "Shuiyun has agreed to go." Li Qingyang's fiancée and Jiang Ye's sister were ordinary people. Xia Shuiyun had been in contact with martial arts since she was young. Naturally, she would not reject. Moreover, she could accompany her fiancé. Damn! Li Fei and Tian Qi muttered in their hearts, "This guy is not satisfied with showing off his affection in the mortal realm. He wants to go to the upper realm to force it on us." Thud! In the region of the burning volcano, Yi Xingqian walked over proudly. Not only did he emit a strong smell of alcohol, but he also exuded a strong fighting spirit. In the 9 years under the shrinking technique, he had always been diligent in his cultivation. He had not relaxed at all. Now, he had stepped into the wusheng from the half-step of wusheng and reached the 5th stage. Rumble. Suddenly, the ground shook and quickly cracked open. Roar! Lava spewed out from the cracks. Then, a huge creature covered in flames appeared and let out a deafening roar. This was the Flame Saint Beast, which was comparable to the Martial Emperor. When Yi Xingqian entered the life and death secret realm for the first time, he decisively chose the Hell mode. However, he was instantly killed by this beast. The Night Emperor could not be humiliated. Therefore, when he was about to ascend to the upper realm, he chose the Hell mode again. It was not to show off, but to regain his lost dignity. Roar! The Flame Saint Beast let out another roar. Flames appeared in the sky and mercilessly pressed down on the arrogant human in front of it. Ta! Yi Xingqian took a step forward and said coldly, "Trash." Boom! 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 In the life and death secret realm under the hell mode, the violent energy crazily exploded and shook the illusionary realm violently. When everything calmed down, Yi Xingqian sat proudly on a huge rock. His 10 fingers were clasped together. Behind him, the flame saint beast, which was comparable to the martial emperor, had been blasted into pieces. He had finally regained his lost dignity today. Junior brother Yi, we can go out now. Xiao Ziji took back his shield and said. Okay. Yi Xingqian got up and left. However, Xiao Ziji was not the only one who left the secret realm. Lu Qianqian, Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others were also there. After all the fuss, it turned out that the core disciples had formed a team to fight the dungeon of the highest difficulty. Otherwise? After settling the family affairs of the disciples, Jun Changshao began to visit his old friends one by one, such as the AI clan leader, City Lord Xia, Mu Changhong, the Certification Hall, and the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Of course, he would not say that he was going to ascend with the sect. Instead, he said that he had something to do and that he had to take the disciples away for a while. Jun Patriarch is a man of great things. I can only wish you a safe journey. City Lord Han said as he walked Yi Xingqian to the door. Goodbye. Jun Changshao left and then went to other states to visit his old friends. He even went to the Demon Emperor's gate and said, when Jun is not here, your sect must be honest. 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 The master of the Demon Emperor's gate said, we will be honest. Ever since the establishment of the Martial Alliance, he had given up on the idea of reviving the demon sect. After all, Jun Changshao was now like an unreachable mountain in front of him. Goodbye. After visiting the Demon Emperor's gate, Jun Changshao took the superpowered teleportation matrix and stopped at the foot of the Miaohua Palace. When is Jun Patriarch leaving? Shi Jingxuan's eyes flashed with sadness. Knowing that he was here to visit, he did not even close his door. Instead, he told her that he was going on a long journey and might not be back for a long time. About 2 or 3 months. Oh. Shi Jingxian responded and tried to smile. Can I see Jun Patriarch off? Jun Changshao said awkwardly, actually, my purpose of this visit is that if Palace Lord Shi wants to go, you can come with me. This, Shi Jingxian hesitated. Jun Changshao said, the place I'm going to might be able to permanently cure your eye disease, Palace Lord Shi. You won't have to wear glasses anymore. I still have to manage the sect, Palace Lord. Zhangsun Fonghua hurriedly said, we'll manage the sect on your behalf. You can follow Jun Patriarch and see the world. Both Shi and Ling Xingyue knew that the Palace Lord was concerned about Jun Changshao. Since he invited her to go on a long journey, she would definitely agree. Jun Patriarch. Shi Jingxian was silent for a while, then said, I'll think about it. All right. Jun Changshao stood up and cupped his hands. If Palace Lord Shi wants to go, you can come to the sect of all times anytime within the next 2 months. Jun will take his leave first. After leaving the Miaohua Palace, he returned to the sect. Right. Jun Changshao slapped his forehead and said to himself, there are still many old friends on the battlefield. I should say goodbye to them before I leave. The system said, are you sure you're going to visit your old friends? Chapter 1324. Jun Changshao once said that he wouldn't come to the dimensional battlefield again, but he failed to keep his promise. He used the portal to come to the Starfall continent again. During these 9 years of studying the fortune of heaven and earth formation, he rarely went out, as if he was isolated from the world. But every time he was tired, he would think of someone. For more than 3,000 days, Jun Changshao's biggest gain wasn't the formation, but learning to calm down and think seriously. So, after coming out of seclusion, he would ask his disciple if he wanted to bring his family with him. Running away is not a solution. The system said, the host still has to face what he has to face. Even if the ending is not perfect, at least bear it like a man. Over these years, it understood Jun Changshao better than anyone else. It was only a pity that it wasn't a female system. Otherwise, there would be many people calling for a couple. So, I still came to the dimensional battlefield. You finally admit it? 9 years of thinking about you weren't in vain. The system said. Jun Changshao ignored it and looked at the peach tree that was obviously more prosperous than 9 years ago. A breeze blew, and the peach blossoms fell. The stronghold was still the same as before, and the scenery was still the same. Unfortunately, the beauty waiting under the tree was no longer there. I said I wouldn't come again. How could she keep waiting? Jun Changshao muttered to himself. Phew. Jun Changshao took a deep breath and flew out, following the broken spatial barrier. He wanted to go to the Lingyuan continent to say goodbye to his golden partner, Kujin Nan. However, just as he flew out, his whole body froze in midair. There was a blue stone outside the stronghold, and a beautiful woman was sitting on it. She supported her face with one hand and smiled. Why are you here again? Who? Rose Queen. Jun Changshao was surprised. Why are you here? You said I couldn't wait for you in the stronghold, so I could only wait outside. Rose Queen grumbled. That's right. The system said, the host said that. I can testify. Jun Changshao was speechless. You didn't wait outside for 9 years, did you? I waited for 3,651 days. Rose Queen said. There were whole numbers and zeros, making it convincing. Jun Changshao covered his forehead and said, Are you stupid? If I'm not stupid, why would I like you? Rose Queen said bitterly. The Spiritus continent was developing every day, but it was still far from meeting the requirements to leave, so she would come here every day when she had nothing to do. What are you waiting for? The system roared in his ear, If you're a man, go and hug your wife in your arms. Sigh. For Gosheng. It wanted nothing more than to transform itself into the strongest Moon Elder system. Jun Changshao smiled bitterly. Actually, I know. He crumpled the letter into a ball and burned it with flames. He said, A woman divorcing a man. It's embarrassing. There's more. Jun Changshao shouted, What I wanted to say at the beginning was that I'm actually going to sneak into the upper realms soon. Don't you want to make the soul continent stronger? You can come with me. As long as your realm becomes stronger, you can get any resources in the world. He spoke very quickly, without taking a breath at all. Sneak into the upper realm? Rose Queen was stunned. Jun Changshao said, I'm going to say goodbye to an old friend. You can think about it. I've already thought about it. Rose Queen said, I'll go with you. Although she was a little confused about the current situation, since he came to ask her, she would definitely not object. The upper realm is not like the lower realm. Jun Changshao said indifferently, If you go, you may not be able to come back. You may even experience death. You have to think carefully. The upper realm is a place that countless creatures in the mortal universe dream of. If you have a way to sneak in, I'll go even if it's a mountain of swords and a sea of fire, Rose Queen said seriously. This sentence was partly because of emotional factors, and partly because of the lifelong pursuit of the strong. Not to mention Rose Queen, even the 9 great martial emperors who had failed to sneak in would definitely choose to take a gamble again. Because it was relatively safer to sneak in than to risk breaking the void. Wait for me here. Jun Changshao said, I'll go say goodbye to City Lord Ke. Oh. Rose Queen nodded in response. After watching him leave, sweetness rose in her heart. She said, He deliberately took the divorce letter because he has me in his heart. Because, the patriarch went to the dimensional battlefield and actually brought back the patriarch's wife. The disciples had long known that the patriarch was married, and it was in the dimensional battlefield. It was just that many had not seen it, so when Rose of Flowers first came to the sect, it definitely caused a huge commotion. Here came the problem. who was the one who spread the news? For reference, Yi Xingqian fought a large group of prisoners alone for the first time, and he was carried back by Zhao Daodu. Su Xiaoma happened to see it, and the next day, the whole sect knew about it. Oh my god! Yao Menjing's eyes widened in shock. The big sister that the patriarch brought back is so beautiful and elegant. Girl! Lu Wancher said seriously, you can't call her big sister, you have to call her the patriarch's wife. Oh. Yao Menjing hurriedly nodded. Because of Rose of Flowers' arrival, the disciples had no time to cultivate, and they all gathered in a group to look at the main hall and discuss in private. Second senior brother, I keep feeling that calling her the patriarch's wife is a bit awkward. Then call her master's wife. Patriarch and disciple were equivalent to master and disciple, so it was reasonable for Li Qingyang and Su Xiaoma to call the patriarch's wife. Inside the main hall, Rose of Flowers glanced at the entry form on the table and smiled. Is this why you burned the letter of divorce? Jun Changshao, who was sitting at the head of the table, clasped his fingers together and said seriously, only by becoming a member of the sect of all times can you follow me to the dimensional battlefield. Okay. Rose of Flowers said, I agree. She was the empress of the soul race. Although she controlled the entire plane, she did not belong to any sect, so she did not have any objections to joining a sect. Moreover, her man was the master here. Ding! Sect members, 100001. Ding! Sect contribution points, 210001. When Rose of Flowers entered the sect of all times according to the procedures, another powerhouse was welcomed, whose strength was only inferior to the lower void-piercing realm. Jun Changshao thought to himself, there's no upper limit in terms of members. If I keep recruiting disciples, won't I be able to earn unlimited contribution points? Host's idea is good, but don't forget, one more disciple means one more set of martial arts resources. Unless you recruit them to raise them, don't daydream, the system said. The cold water poured over Jun Changshao's heart, making him feel cold. Indeed, one more member of the sect was equivalent to one more burden. If they were worth nurturing, it would be worth recruiting, otherwise, it would definitely be a loss. Sigh. Jun Changshao sighed. Patriarch. Li Qingyang walked over and said, Master's wife's residence has been arranged. It happens to be right next to your courtyard. The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth twitched slightly. Jun Changshao looked up at the full moon and smiled evilly. Upper realm, I'm coming. Prajna Paramitha. Whoosh in an instant, the falling star continent that had fallen into darkness was dyed as bright as day by a strong light. The martial artists who were not asleep came out one after another and looked in shock at the light that shot into the sky in the direction of Yangzhou and Qingyang County in the southwest. City Lord Xia walked out of his bedroom wearing the Hello Kitty pajamas that Jun Changshao had given him. When he saw the natural phenomenon, his eyes widened and he exclaimed, What's going on? The light is coming from the sect of all times. What's going on? The major families and martial artists closest to the Iron Bone Mountain were all dumbfounded. Especially when the aura that contained the supreme mystery spread over, they all had the urge to worship it. Could it be? City Lord Han exclaimed, Jun Patriarch broke through the void? Judging from the natural phenomenon, it was indeed a scene of breaking through the void and ascending to the upper realm. However, it was illegal. Oh my god! The disciples of the sect of all times who were in the most dazzling area of the white light were all stunned. Whoosh! After a while, the light that was as bright as day suddenly disappeared, and the whole world returned to normal. Jun Changshao, who was in the center of the fortune-stealing formation, had disappeared. This meant that the illegal immigration was a success. However, a very serious problem appeared. Go Sheng had left, but the Iron Bone Mountain and the disciples were still there. Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuiji, and the others were dumbstruck. After a while, they looked at each other in dismay. Their faces were filled with confusion. Damn it! Rose of Flowers frowned and said, he said that he would bring me with him. Why did he leave alone? Falling Star Calendar, September 9th, 12028, night. The natural phenomenon pierced through the clouds. The patriarch of the sect of all times, the alliance master of the martial alliance, Jun Changshao, broke through the void and ascended to the upper realm under everyone's witness. He became the new legend of the continent. Chapter 1326. The phenomenon disappeared. The higher-ups and disciples of the sect of all times were dumbfounded. They were supposed to ascend to the upper realm together. Why did they only see the patriarch being guided by the holy light and then breaking through the clouds? Everyone was left behind. As experienced people, although the 9 great martial emperors were not present, they could tell from the commotion that this was not a void shattering. Someone had used the fortune of heaven and earth array to sneak in. Who? It should be Jun Changshao. That's right. Goshen finally succeeded in sneaking in as he wished. However, he wanted to bring the entire sect to sneak in, but in the end, he was the only one who went up. This was not going according to the plot. Second senior brother. Su Xiaoma looked like he was about to break down. The patriarch has ascended by himself. What should we do? Li Qingyang said helplessly, I don't know what to do either. Damn it. Yi Xingqian was so angry that his hands were trembling. He had long been prepared to ascend to the upper realm, but in the end, this was the result. It was really hard to accept. Sigh. Elder Wei and the others shook their heads and sighed. They were not upset that they did not ascend to the upper realm, but that the patriarch had gone up alone. Wouldn't the sect have lost its backbone? Elder Zhen. Jiangye said, can the array be activated again? After Jun Changshao was teleported, Zhen Dijuan began to study it. In the end, he found that the array core and the front line had completely dimmed, so he said helplessly, this is a one-time array. It will lose its effect once it's activated. Everyone, although the patriarch used to be a hands-off boss, he could still come back. Now that he had broken through the void shattering, wouldn't it mean that he would be separated forever? A gloomy cloud gradually gathered in the sky. The higher-ups and disciples looked listless. A sect without the patriarch was incomplete. A sect of all times without Jun Changshao was soulless. Just as everyone was in low spirits, Rose of Flowers adjusted her mood in time and said, all the internal affairs of the sect will still be handled by Yuan Gongzi. Everyone, go about your duties as usual. The patriarch was not there. The patriarch's wife is still here. Moreover, an empress who could control a plane might be able to control a sect. Yes. Everyone received the order. It was a fact that the patriarch had ascended, and it could not be reversed. The only thing they could do was adjust their mentality and welcome the days without the patriarch in the future. Husband. Rose of Flowers looked up at the sky and thought, I will help you manage the sect of all times until I have the strength to break through the void. Then, I will go to the upper realm to reunite with you. Senior Sister Lu. Yao Menjing teared up and said, will the patriarch come back? The patriarch left peacefully. He will definitely return. Lu Wancher said with a firm gaze. Move it, move it, move it. The next day, a beautiful melody sounded in the martial arts practice field as usual, and all the disciples began to do their morning exercises. Although Jun Changshao had left, they would not relax, so they still had to work hard to cultivate and continue to improve their strength. Snowflakes fluttering, the north wind whistling. Heaven and earth are vast. A pair of plum blossoms stand proudly in the snow, only for the fragrance of my lover. The sad song resounded in the sky above the sect of all times, and it seemed to be able to penetrate the endless void and reverberate in the vast snowy land. Why is this? Why is this? In the vast snowy land, a lonely person stood. He knelt on the ground, hugging his head and shouting. That's right. This was the upper realm. A new world that was no different from the falling star continent except for the unusually rich heaven and earth attribute. That's right. This person was Jun Changshao. At this moment, he was completely disheartened. The matter started from when he appeared out of thin air. When Goshen felt the stronger heaven and earth attribute, he realized that he had successfully sneaked in, so he spread his arms and said with a happy expression, "New world, new air, new atmosphere. Babies. Tell me loudly, do you feel it?" Silence. Cold. There was nothing else. Could it be that they were shocked by the heaven and earth attribute of the upper realm? Sigh, what a bunch of inexperienced disciples. Jun Changshao opened his eyes, and in the next second, his expression became sluggish. Because what he saw was not the sect, but a snowy land. Fuck. He had clearly set up a large-scale creation formation on Mount Ironbone. Why didn't he bring it up? Could it be that this formation could only allow living beings to sneak in, and could not bring the entire mountain? It did not matter, it did not matter. If he did not bring Mount Ironbone, he could just find another mountain. Jun Changshao's mentality was still quite good. However, the system's voice rang in his ears. "I'm sorry to inform the host that not only was Mount Ironbone not brought up, your wife, the higher-ups of the sect, disciples, and even chickens, ducks, geese, and fish were all not brought up." Gah! Jun Changshao's facial muscles suddenly froze. After a while, he turned around stiffly. Only then did he realize that he was surrounded by a vast snowy land, and there was no one else except him. Therefore, he knelt on the ground, hugged his head, and shouted, "Why is this, why is this?" Because, the system explained, the creation formation can only transport one person. The host's previous thinking was too naive. Pfft! Jun Changshao spat out a mouthful of blood. I studied seriously and painstakingly for 9 years, and even made drastic changes to the formation, and even lost all my hair, but in the end, only I was transported up. What was this? This was a blatant scam. You. Since you knew. Why didn't you say so earlier? Jun Changshao clutched his chest, his heart bleeding. I'm sorry. The system said, I guessed it based on Empress Ling Yao's ascension to the upper realm, as well as the host's ascension this time. Ah! Jun Changshao hugged his head and screamed. 9 years of hard work just to bring this sect to the upper realm, but in the end, he was the only one who came up. This was definitely not the plot he wanted. This was definitely, stop howling. The system said, there are still 3 months before the main mission. The host had better think of a way quickly, otherwise when the time comes, you and I will both die. Pfft! Jun Changshao spat out another mouthful of blood. If the sect did not ascend with him, then so be it. At most, he could develop his strength first, and when he had the strength in the future, he could bring them up one by one. But the main mission was still there, and there were only 3 months left. If I knew this would be the result. Jun Changshao lay down and buried his face in the snow. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. I shouldn't have smuggled myself up. Why? The reason was simple. In the lower realm, he only had to think of a way to smuggle himself in, but in the upper realm, he had to think of a way to go down. Sigh. The system said, poor host. After a pause, it suddenly burst into laughter. As a professional assistant, it had undergone strict training, and no matter how funny it would not laugh unless it could not help it. 9 years. He had finally developed the formation with his own efforts, especially when he was about to ascend, and the special effects and funds were exhausted. In the end, coming up alone was simply, swoosh. Jun Changshao stood up from the snow, his eyes shining with an unyielding luster. He said, I will not be defeated by setbacks, I will pull myself together. His attitude and eyes represented his current attitude, but his body was honestly drooping, as if he had lost his soul. Swoosh! 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 At this moment, streams of light streaked across the void, and a strong airflow came first, instantly sweeping away the snow on the ground. Jun Changshao's eyes widened, because when the aura gradually calmed down, martial artists on flying swords stood in the air 100 feet away. They were wearing the same uniform, and looked very stylish. "How dare you, thief!" The leader of the group, a young man, shouted coldly, "How dare you trespass into the territory of the Sword Mystic Sect? Thief!" Jun Changshao straightened his body and slowly raised his head, the corners of his mouth raised into a disdainful, apologetic smile. He said, "Sorry, I'm lost, I'll leave now." Fuck. Chapter 13:27. This group of martial artists who came on flying swords numbered about 20 or so. They seemed to be in their 20s or 30s, but their cultivation was actually all in the lower void-piercing realm. He knew that the upper realm had stronger heaven and earth attributes and laws, but a disciple of a Xian-level sect could casually come out with so many martial emperors. This was too casual. According to the Black and White Rakshasa, Jun Changshao not only knew that there were sects in the upper realm, but there were also 4 levels: Xian, True, Dao, and Celestial. The Sword Xian sect that these people mentioned had the word Xian in its name, so it was obviously the lowest level. Even so, it could still beat the entire mortal universe. After all, any disciple who flew here casually had the strength of a lower void-piercing realm. Jun Changshao, who could do whatever he wanted in the lower realm, was scared. It was not because he was afraid of the power of this group of generals, but because there were still 3 months left. He had to avoid trouble and do proper business. The host has changed. The system said, to put it bluntly, it's considering the big picture, but to put it nicely, it's that you've grown a brain. Jun Changshao roared, "Then don't say nice things, say more nasty things." Lost? The leading disciple of the Sword Xian sect said coldly, "This land of cold snow is covered with layers of formations. Do you think it's your own backyard and you can barge in carelessly?" The major sects in the upper realm were like countries. Not only did they have their own mountains, but they also had their own boundaries. Especially in special places, it was a bit of a problem to barge in without permission. Jun Changshao was very depressed. He really did not want to appear here. But the problem was that he was sent by the fortune of heaven and earth great array, so he did not have the right to choose his own direction. He. Jun Changshao pretended to be stupid and smiled. "Sorry for disturbing, I'll leave now." Shwa. He leaped into the air and then landed back down. Shwa. He jumped again and landed again. "Sorry." Jun Changshao scratched his head awkwardly and said, "It's my first time here, so I'm a bit nervous. Let me try a few more times." The Sword Xian sect disciple looked at him as if he was an idiot. Shwa. Shwa. Whoosh. Jun Changshao hopped a few more times like a grasshopper, but in the end, he landed steadily on the ground. Thus, he roared in his heart, "Why can't I fly?" The system said, "The heavenly axiom's binding power here is 1,000 times stronger than the upper realm. With the host's current cultivation level, it's impossible to fly freely." The mortal planes all had their own systems. After reaching a certain level, one would be able to transcend the shackles. In the higher level planes, the shackles would definitely be stronger. Unless one relied on a flying treasure, such as the flying swords that the disciples of the Sword Mystic Sect were standing on. Jun Changshao was on the verge of breaking down. In other words, not only am I in trouble right now, but I can't even escape with the power of flight. I'm like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. They can't beat the host, the system said. Of course, Jun Changshao knew the answer to this question. However, he had just snuck up here, and they had arrived on their flying swords. Who knew if there were even stronger experts? If he fought one batch after another, would he still be able to do his job? The system said, "Host, you can't fly or burrow into the ground now. You can only fight them head-on." Caw caw caw. At this moment, light flickered behind Jun Changshao's back. Steel wings gathered, and then, with a swoosh, he flew into the sky. Ha ha ha. This thing can be used. The system was silent because it had been slapped in the face again. Jun Changshao suddenly flew away in front of their eyes with the help of the mechanical armed wings, causing the disciples of the Sword Mystic Sect to be stunned. The leader was the first to come back to his senses and said angrily, "Don't let him escape, chase after him." Swoosh! 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 In an instant, 20 flying swords dragged streaks of light behind them as they streaked across the vast expanse of white snow, creating a gorgeous and colorful scene. One had to admit that the upper realm's space barrier was really stable. If it was in the lower realm, just a few dozen lower void-piercing realm cultivators would be able to form an aura that could distort space. However, here, it did not cause the slightest ripple at all. Swoosh! Jun Changshao, who was supported by the mechanical armed wings, escaped at top speed. However, he could clearly sense that the speed was not very fast, and was not on the same level as the flying swords. Thief, don't run! Swoosh! 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 At this moment, the disciples of the Sword Mystic Sect, who were chasing behind him, raised their fingers one after another, condensing a similar sword aura and blasted it. Although Jun Changshao dodged easily, because he dodged left and right, his speed was reduced, and the distance between the two was suddenly shortened by a lot. If his mechanical armed wings and the flying swords of the Sword Mystic Sect disciples were described as horses, one was a normal level, and the other was a 1,000-mile level. There was no comparison at all. Hello everyone, I am Jun Changshao, a middle void-piercing realm cultivator. Now, I am being chased by 20 lower void-piercing realm cultivators. I am panicking because their horses run faster than mine. Swoosh! Swoosh! A sharp sword-like light burst out. Jun Changshao dealt with it easily, but the distance was also infinitely shortened, and it would only take a few minutes to catch up. Damn it! I am not running anymore. Ta! After escaping for about 100 miles, Jun Changshao landed on an empty snowy ground. Swoosh! 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 In an instant, 20 disciples of the Sword Mystic Sect flew over, and they quickly scattered and surrounded him. Clang! The green dragon crescent blade appeared out of thin air and smashed on the ground, sweeping away layers of thick snow. You guys! Jun Changshao said with a cold gaze, this is a bit too much. This kind of line was usually reserved for the enemies of the lower realm. Today, when it was said by Go Sheng, why did it sound so comfortable? Kid! The leader said coldly, it seems that you should be a spy sent by the Iceblade Mystic Sect. Jun Changshao was also considered experienced. He immediately realized that this inference must be due to the green dragon crescent blade that he used. I don't want to explain. Either you let me leave or become a soul under the blade. His gaze gradually became cold, and killing intent gathered in his words. Angry. Angry. Do you really think I am a good person? The disciples of the Sword Mystic Sect obviously didn't understand Jun Changshao's character and sneered, since you are here, don't think about leaving. Shua, as soon as he finished speaking, a green blade light directly pressed down on him. He was so shocked that he hurriedly drove his flying sword to retreat, but it was already too late. He could only use his sword to block. Ding! Crack! The green blade light gradually dissipated, and the thick snow on the ground was splashed into the air. The Sword Mystic Sect disciple staggered and fell to the ground. The sharp sword in his hand had been cut into two, and he was instantly stunned. The sword that was personally strengthened and blessed by the sect's sword casting hall elder was actually cut in half so easily. Was this guy that strong? Or the quality of the blade in his hand was high. Ninth senior brother. His companions exclaimed in unison. Go! 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 That person shouted angrily. Regardless of whether the opponent was strong or had a strong weapon, it meant that he was definitely not a good person. Therefore, there was no need to be polite. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 19 disciples of the Sword Mystic Sect received the order and drove the flying swords under their feet. They either gathered a powerful finger light or took out their weapons to press down on Jun Changshao. Whoosh whoosh! Jun Changshao raised the green dragon crescent blade to fight, and his cultivation also fully erupted. Not good. He's a middle void-piercing stage. The sword mystic sect disciple who pressed forward finally saw Jun Changshao's true strength, but it was already too late. Because the gorgeous blade light filled the sky in the snowflakes, suddenly interweaving into a different kind of beauty. Ding! Pang! Puchi! Put-ong! A few minutes later, a sword mystic sect disciple was directly chopped into pieces and fell to the ground. An eye-catching blade mark appeared on his chest, and blood was spurting out. As for the other 18 companions, they were already injured and struggling on the ground. Whoosh! Jun Changshao, who was standing in the crowd with his blade, struck a pose while lighting the cigar in his mouth. Then, he took a puff and blew out a smoke ring. Only then did he say indifferently, "If a tiger doesn't show its power, you think I'm a sick cat? Stop pretending." The system said, "Take advantage of now and run." Shwa! Jun Changshao waved his hand and put all the flying swords scattered on the ground into the spatial ring. Since this thing could allow a lower void-piercing stage to fly easily, it must be a good treasure. He could keep it for himself or give it to the disciples who came up in the future. Goshing loves money, don't have it, just rob. The system complained. Shwa! Jun Changshao took out a flying sword, forcibly erased the soul imprint inside, and then stepped on it, saying confidently, "Go." Whoosh! The flying sword cut through the sky. However, when the camera moved back, it was discovered that the sword had flown away, and Jun Changshao was left behind. Moreover, it was upside down in the snow. Obviously, he was not familiar with flying sword for the first time and directly caused the entire section to collapse. Chapter 13:28. Whoosh! The sword light cut through the void and traveled in the flying snow. Jun Changshao's posture was a little crooked as he stepped on it. However, after gradually finding the balance, it began to look like it. After all, the realm was here, and the ability to learn was very strong. It can fly. It can act cool. This thing is really good. Jun Changshao, who was flying on the sword, had his hands behind his back, bent his waist, and even flew left and right as if he was performing acrobatics. Is it fun? Yes. Do you know how to play? Yes. You haven't played before, right? No. Jun Changshao hurriedly adjusted his posture and frowned. What are you talking about? Let's go. The system was speechless. Let's hurry up and find a way to leave this snowy land. Maybe the powerhouses of the Sword Mystic Sect are on the way. That's right. Jun Changshao became serious. Any random disciple sent out was at the lower level of the void-piercing realm. Wouldn't the higher-ups of the Mystic Sect be at the middle or upper level? With all kinds of trump cards, Go Sheng was not afraid, but he was afraid that time would be delayed and he would not be able to complete the seemingly impossible main mission. The area covered by snow was extremely large. Due to the harsh environment, there were no villages or towns. Jun Changshao flew for a full 2 hours before reaching the edge of the area and was blocked by layers of solid enchantments. The territory of the Sword Mystic Sect is really vast. According to preliminary calculations, the area of the upper realm is at least 100 times larger than the Falling Star continent. Interesting. Jun Changshao's eyes were burning. The bigger the upper realm, the more people there were and the more powerhouses there were. Bringing the sect of all times up and developing it to become the strongest would definitely give him a greater sense of achievement. Humans. They were all ambitious. Coming to a new plane and experiencing new attributes, they naturally had new pursuits, although it might just be a random thought in the heat of the moment. Whoosh! Jun Changshao opened his eyes wide and released his spiritual sense into the barrier, beginning to rely on the formation-breaking chapter of Chimen Duanjia to try to break it. The system wanted to speak. Whoosh! All of a sudden, the formation barrier that existed in the surroundings dissipated. The system almost cursed out loud. In the past, as soon as he said something, he would be slapped in the face. Now, before he even said anything, he would be slapped in the face in advance. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, I thought that the formations of the upper realm were very powerful, but now it seems that they are not even half as strong as the Starry Sky Fortress. Nonsense. The defensive system of the fortress was set up by the Realm Hall. Although it had been around for a long time, its scale and strength were enough to kill a Xian-ranked sect even in the upper realm. He's gone, he's gone. Jun Changshao was about to control the flying sword. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he hurriedly dodged to the left. Swish! He only saw a sword light silently slashing past his neck. If his reaction was a little slower, his head would definitely fall to the ground. Shwa! At this moment, a slight sound of wind breaking came from behind him. More sword lights were pressing down on him. Jun Changshao dodged left and right. He dodged left and right until he dodged all of them. Then, he fell to the ground in a sorry state. No wonder you can injure my fellow sect member. You have some ability. A cold and arrogant voice came. Jun Changshao raised his head and looked over. He saw a flying sword shrouded in multicolored radiance several hundred feet away. A man in his 20s or 30s was standing on top of the flying sword. The exquisite jade box in front of him was opened and floating in the air. There were 6 small sword slots inside. If there were martial artists from the upper realm present, they would immediately recognize that this was Lin Lang, the chief disciple of the Imperial Sword Sect. Because he always carried the box with the 6 swords, he was also known as the Gentleman of 6 Swords. Whoosh! 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 The 6 sword lights that failed to attack drew an arc and flew over. They turned into pocket-sized shapes and were placed in the 6 sword slots. Damn! Jun Changshao's horizons were broadened. Playing with swords, he could even play such tricks. He was indeed impressive. You trespassed into the territory of the Imperial Sword Sect and severely injured our disciples. Now, you have broken the formation barrier. Do you think you can still leave? Lin Lang said lightly. This person's tone was cold and arrogant. It was understandable. After all, as the chief disciple of the inner sect, his strength had reached the middle stage of the void-piercing realm. Of course, Jun Changshao would never think that this person and the 20 Imperial Sword Sect disciples who fought with him before were really only in their 20s or 30s. Their actual age was probably at least 300 to 500 years old. No. The system said, at most 100 years old. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. Breaking through the middle stage of the void-piercing realm at the age of 100 years old, and it was the path of the sword. People from the upper realm were too monstrous. Compared to the host, he can only be considered a younger brother. The system said. That was right. After all, Gosheng only used 10 years to reach the middle stage of the void-piercing realm. Even if the other party was 100 years old, it was still 10 times faster. Even so. Jun Changshao said unhappily, I'm not as arrogant as him. The system was speechless. You're always extorting and resisting the sanctions of the upper realm. You even blew up the Starry Sky Fortress. Are you not arrogant enough? Or is it that as long as you're not riding on the sky and standing shoulder to shoulder with the sun, all your actions are simple and unpretentious? He Tue. The system really could not stand this kind of pretentious person who thought he was always low-key. Sorry. Jun Changshao shrugged and said, if I want to leave, no one can stop me. If I don't leave, no one can chase me away. Lin Lang said lightly, is that so? Swoosh! With a light wave of his finger, the 6 needle-sized swords in the box flew out again and shone with a sharp light. If you want to fight, come down and fight. What kind of hero are you if you fly in the sky? Jun Changshao said. Ta! Lin Lang actually landed and said, the punishment for 3 crimes. Today, I'll cripple both of your hands and one of your legs. You can't. Jun Changshao raised his index finger and shook it provocatively. Lin Lang's gaze turned cold. The 6 sword lights hanging in front of the box suddenly shot out and quickly expanded to the size of a normal sword. Swoosh! Jun Changshao summoned the green dragon crescent blade again. The blade stuck close to the snow and sped forward. When the sword lights were about to reach him, he suddenly swept up layers of snow and slashed. Ding! 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 The sword and blade collided like striking jade and striking gold. Swoosh! After Jun Changshao broke through the 6 sword lights, he rolled his body like he was performing an opera. In the end, he slashed down with great force. The sword light that tore the soil apart blasted toward the area where Lin Lang was. Swoosh! Wherever the sword light passed, the figure disappeared. Jun Changshao released his spiritual sense and quickly noticed that the other party had appeared behind him without him noticing. Thus, he said in surprise, is this a movement technique? Or a magical ability? Sword of 6 directions. Lin Lang shouted coldly. Instantly, an extremely strong sword force appeared around him. The 6 swords that were sent flying suddenly changed direction and quickly enlarged to slash toward him. Ding! 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 Metal and stone collided. Sparks flew everywhere. The enlarged swords carried more power. Although Jun Changshao could contend with them, he was also retreating as he fought. He thought to himself, this guy's strength is far stronger than the 12 wardens. The system said, if each tiger is compared to the strength of 1 tiger, then this person's strength is at least the strength of 2 tigers. After all, he has the support of swordsmanship. After retreating dozens of steps, Jun Changshao put away the green dragon crescent blade before the other 6 swords launched a new round of attacks. He summoned Jade Dragon asks the heavens and said, I'm going to get serious now. Lin Lang said calmly, your sword is trash. Jun Changshao was speechless. Although his sword was not the best in the lower realm, it was still considered outstanding. Now, it was trash in the eyes of others. It's normal. The system said, now, except for the Sky Hegemon Spear, Shenyuan Divine Armor, Great Sage Set, and Hard to Retract Blade, which cost a lot of contribution points, the rest of the equipment in the upper realm are almost worthless. That's why. Jun Changshao said to himself, coming here, not only do I have to choose a place with good feng shui for the sect to settle down, I also have to find some high-grade equipment. Otherwise, how can I survive in the future? It's more appropriate to change looking to snatch, the system said. Swoosh! Jun Changshao rushed over with his sword and said coldly, the path of swordsmanship is not a competition of the sword, but of the heart of the sword. Buzz buzz buzz. The air suddenly trembled slightly. The stones, branches, and other things that were covered in snow flew out on their own. Then, they flew over in the shape of a sword and followed behind him like a whirlpool. Lin Lang's expression changed. The sword intent in Jun Changshao's eyes, the sword force released from his body, and the sword moves he used were all above him. It was him. He was definitely not from the High Blade sect. Whoosh whoosh. At this moment, the tens of thousands of sword auras gathered behind Jun Changshao instantly gathered together and turned into a huge thorn-shaped sword. The powerful sword aura that erupted from it directly tore apart layers of thick snow and swept up 3 feet of frozen soil, leaving a deep and long ditch in its wake. Boom! The sound of the explosion reverberated in the cold sky. The tip of the giant sword formed by the sect returning 10,000 swords directly pierced the defensive barrier that Lin Lang set up in a hurry. Then, cracks gradually appeared until it completely exploded with a bang. Thump thump thump. The head disciple of the High Blade sect staggered back dozens of steps. His face was extremely pale. In the end, he couldn't help but spit out blood. Swoosh! Swoosh! The 6 flying swords seemed to have lost their connection with their owners. They all lost their colors and stabbed into the ground. Seriously? Jun Changshao walked over and shook his head. You're too weak. Swoosh! With a wave of his hand, he kept the 6 swords into the space ring and said proudly, when you have a deeper understanding of the path of swordsmanship, come to the Sect of all times and ask for weapons from me. You, whoosh! Jun Changshao stepped on his flying sword and left in a carefree manner. Pooh! Seeing the 6 treasured swords that had followed him for dozens of years being snatched away, Lin Lang couldn't suppress the boiling blood in his body again. Injuring people and snatching weapons. How shameless! Chapter 1329. Without the formation blocking his way, Jun Changshao was like a fish returning to the sea, swimming freely in the endless sky. Lin Lang did not chase after him because he was already injured. Especially when his weapon was stolen, it was a serious second blow. Damn it! Looking at the sword glow that was gradually disappearing from his sight, he roared helplessly in his heart, I will definitely go to the Sect of all times and take back the 6 treasure swords. Wait a minute. He had never heard of the Sect of all times before. No matter. Since he left the name of the sect, it must exist. As long as the Sword Mystic Sect used their connections and network, they would definitely be able to find it easily. The idea was good. But for now, unless he went to the lower realm, it would be extremely difficult to find it. Humph! Jun Changshao, who was traveling through the vast sky, sneered and thought to himself, if I wasn't in a hurry, how could you guys, who went too far, just lose your flying swords and weapons? The Sword Mystic Sect. I'll remember it. I'll visit when I'm free. The system promptly complained, the main thing is that you're worried that the higher-ups of the sect will come and you won't be able to beat them, so you've decided to listen to them first. Scram! Whoosh! Jun Changshao did not dare to stay too long near the Sword Mystic Sect's territory. He traveled at full speed until he arrived at a primeval forest. He found a relatively clean cave and hurriedly summoned the teleportation gate. It's here. It's here. A bold idea that had once occurred to him. The system remained silent, worried that it would be slapped in the face if it said too much. Whoosh whoosh. The teleportation gate of the dimensional battlefield appeared and gradually formed a whirlpool. Jun Changshao was delighted, it should work. Swoosh! Bang! As soon as he walked over, he was fiercely bounced back, as if he was blocked by an extremely thick wall. The system remained silent. Damn it! Jun Changshao rubbed his face and said, as expected, the upper realm and the lower realm cannot be connected. After a pause, he said, it's not a big problem. There's still Cuihua and Zhu Zi. With a thought, he summoned the 2 space-time worms of different sexes and ordered, eat the barrier that's blocking me from entering. Yes. The 2 little fellows opened their mouths and gnawed on it. Then, a cracking sound was heard, as if their teeth were about to be broken. Master! Zhu Zi grimaced. The barrier is too hard. We can't bite it open. Plop! Jun Changshao slumped to the ground. Although 3 months was a bit of a rush, he was still relatively calm because he could use the teleportation gate to go back. Now that he had tested it out, the result was that he had thought too much. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. The system finally stopped being silent and started to laugh unscrupulously. The system said, the moment the host stepped into the upper realm, it meant that the conditions were met. Therefore, the current system is the true version 2.0. It suddenly became fashionable. Are the functions also strengthened? Jun Changshao's eyes were burning. That's not the case. It's just a simple change of interface. Yes. Can you come out and let me give you a good beating? The host is not my match. Jun Changshao clicked on the high-level store. Although the background of the items had changed, the items inside were still refreshed. Pa! As usual, he prayed before the refresh. Come on. After praying to various deities, Jun Changshao fiercely pulled down the store. Then, he saw the items in front of him shake slightly. Then, they were replaced by colorful lights until they weakened and revealed brand new items. This complete upper realm system even changed the refresh effect. It gave people a feeling of suddenly having funds and suddenly being superior. Jun Changshao did not care about the fancy effects. He only cared if there were items that were useful to him. For example, there were teleportation portals or portals that could connect the upper and lower realms and ignore the restrictions of heaven and earth. Unfortunately, there were none. However, there was an item called Moonlight Treasure Box. Could it be? Jun Changshao hurriedly clicked on the introduction. The content that appeared was item, Moonlight Treasure Box Introduction, a treasure that uses moonlight to achieve space travel. Effect: after the activation requirements are met, it can accurately teleport according to the location provided by the user. Advantage: you can go on a trip across the various universes at any time you want. Disadvantage: one-time use, unique product. Price: 100,000 contribution points. Level: none. After reading the introduction, Jun Changshao squatted on the ground. He covered his face with one hand. His body trembled slightly. He did not know if he was laughing or crying. There was laughter and crying. He was laughing because when he was at his most desperate and helpless, just one refresh of the store immediately sent him warmth. They were crying because they could finally go back to the falling star continent and see their disciples again, whom they had not seen for a day. What was he waiting for? He would definitely buy it. Not to mention that this Moonlight Treasure Box was a one-time use item, he would not hesitate even if he spent all his contribution points. Ding! The host has spent 100,000 contribution points and obtained Moonlight Treasure Box X1. It has been transferred to the space ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 100001. Schwa! Jun Changshao took out the treasure engraved with the words Moonlight Treasure Box and hurriedly walked out. Coincidentally, it was already night outside. The moonlight shone on the earth. Wait a minute. When he was about to use it, the system stopped him. Host, you must think carefully. What's there to think about? Jun Changshao said, directly return to the falling star continent. For now, you can go back, but... The system said seriously, Host, do you have a way to bring the sect disciples to the upper realm? Jun Changshao fell silent. It turned out that the great creation array that he had worked hard on for 9 years was suitable for single-person teleportation. As for large-scale smuggling, it was a complete joke. Since there's no way to bring them up. The system said, Host, what's the point of returning to the falling star continent? Or do you want to drag your family and disciples to die with you when the mission fails? Jun Changshao said, What do you mean? Find a way to bring the disciples to the upper realm and use this one-time, unique Moonlight Treasure Box, the system said. By one-time use, it was gone after one use. By uniqueness, it could not be bought again. It was very precious. Yes. Jun Changshao was enlightened. He said, think of a way here. In the lower realm, the array was useless. If one wanted to ascend, they could only rely on the store and luck. It was different in the upper realm. After all, this was a stronger world. Maybe, I've got it. Jun Changshao slapped his forehead and said, I can go find the Taishian elder. Since he can create an ascension array for a single person, maybe he can create an ascension array for a team. That's right. The system did not let Go Sheng continue to refresh. Firstly, there were not many contribution points left. Secondly, luck was too important. Thirdly, it was more reliable to find a way in the upper realm than in the lower realm. If anyone says I'm a salesman again, I'll get angry with them. Wait. Jun Changshao thought. Where did the Taishian elder say it was? Feng Qi Celestial Mountain. Let's go find that guy. Although it was late at night and he was slightly tired from fighting 2 battles in the day, Gosheng still chose to set off. After all, time was limited. On a distant mountain peak surrounded by clouds, the Taishan elder was observing the stars at night. He frowned and said, "The dark stars suddenly shone brightly. This is an ominous sign." Chapter 1330. Imperial Sword Mystic Faction, Main Hall. A few sage-like elders sat in the lower seats, their brows filled with anger. The boundary was protected by the array formation, but someone actually sneaked in, injured 20 disciples and the chief disciple, and stole their flying swords and weapons. Who the hell could stand this? Lin Lang said. An elder said with a cold gaze, "That guy reported his sect before he left. It's called the Sect of All Times." Sect of All Times? The gray-haired elder next to him scoffed. "Humph, what an arrogant name. I've never heard of such a sect in the upper realm. There's not even a word mystic, it's enough to show that it's an unranked sect. Since that's the case, he shouldn't have any background or connections. Send people to investigate as soon as possible, capture him and bring him back to the sect." "I'm just afraid," an old man who seemed to be smarter said, "just randomly report a sect or deliberately frame them. There's such a possibility." The third elder, who was more authoritative, said in a low voice, "So let's not care about the Sect of All Times now, but find that guy first. I've already sent the Heavens I Hall Master to investigate the scene of the battle. I believe that in a few days, we'll be able to lock onto his specific location," the fourth elder said solemnly. As a ranked sect that majored in sword Dao, they had quite a status among those of the same level. They had never been bullied like this, even to the point of bullying at their doorstep, so even if they couldn't do anything, they had to fight for their dignity and investigate to the end. A few days later, a burly middle-aged man with sharp eyes walked into the main hall and said, reporting to the elders, "I've locked onto that guy's aura." "Good." The third elder immediately ordered, "Send people to chase after him immediately." Even the chief disciple, a middle void-piercing realm cultivator, was beaten into seclusion to recuperate, so the Imperial Sword Mystic Faction dared not underestimate the enemy, so they sent an upper void-piercing realm cultivator and 2 middle void-piercing realm cultivators. Even the flying swords they rode were top-grade. 3 elders. The hallmaster in charge of tracking the aura stopped at the cave abode Jun Changshao had stayed in before and said solemnly, "He came here. Where did he go now?" "He went to the east." "Let's go." Xiao. Xiao. Whoosh. 4 flying swords tore through the heavens and headed east. Soon after, they entered a lush mountain forest. They found traces of battle on the ground, as well as blood all over the ground. "It's the blood of a sacred beast," the hall master of the Heavenly Eye Hall said with certainty. "It must be that guy." "Strange." One of the elders was rather puzzled. "Judging from the blood at the scene, the holy beast should be dead without a doubt. Why can't we even see a single beast hair?" "Don't tell me that the kid took it all away. The saint beasts in this forest are at most 2nd or 3rd rank. Even if we sell them at the market, they won't be worth much. Is there something wrong with that brat's head?" Achoo! Jun Changshao, who was thousands of miles away, sneezed. He continued to skillfully use the green dragon crescent blade to skin the sacred beast he had just killed. He grinned and said, "As expected of the upper realm, I can casually encounter sacred beasts that are comparable to martial emperors. The system was on the verge of breaking down. Can't we hurry up?" Time was tight, but this guy was so engrossed in hunting that he couldn't extricate himself. "Sure." Jun Changshao took out his flying sword and flew east. Because he didn't know where he was and where the Feng Qi Immortal Mountain was, what he had to do now was to find a town as soon as possible and ask someone who was familiar with the upper realm for directions. However, the upper realm was really big. Gosheng rushed for another 3 days, flying over countless mountains and ridges before he finally saw a place that looked like a city in the distance. Stillwater Town. Stopping at the city gate and seeing the words engraved on it, Jun Changshao broke down. This city that is several times larger than Qingyang City is just a town. Stillwater Town was a very ordinary small town in the upper realm. The resident population was only 5 million, but there were all kinds of industries inside. When Jun Changshao walked in and saw that the strength of the street vendors wasn't particularly high, he heaved a sigh of relief. There are still ordinary people in the upper realm. The system said, not all of them have the lower void-piercing realm. Jun Changshao spread his legs and pointed at the bearers and waiters who walked past him. He roared, "Big brother, they are all Emperor stage half-saints, how can they be considered ordinary people? It's normal." The system said, with the rich heaven and earth attributes of the upper realm, even if you bring a dog up, just by breathing in and out every day, you can break through to the dog emperor realm. I don't believe it. Little brother. A voice came from beside his ear. Jun Changshao turned around and found that there was a huge heavy rock in front of him out of thin air. In his field of vision, he could barely see a 3 or 4-year-old child holding it up with one hand and smiling brightly at him. Please make way. Jun Changshao's expression stiffened as he moved aside. Ta! Ta! The little guy walked forward step by step and walked to the corner of the courtyard. With a light lift of his finger, the heavy rock fell with a plop sound. Then he clapped his hands and said, "Mother, I've brought back the heavy rock. Can we eat now?" Stinking brat. A woman who looked quite ordinary walked out of the courtyard and reprimanded with her hands on her hips. It's a round trip of 500 miles. Why are you 15 minutes slower than yesterday? The child scratched his head and said weakly, "I went to catch a rabbit halfway. Dinner is halved." Don't, my good mother. Jun Changshao, who had been listening to the conversation between the mother and son, had a completely stiff expression on his face. Big brother. A 2 or 3-year-old child should act like a 2 or 3-year-old child. For example, he could use his urine to play with mud. Lifting a heavy rock and running 500 miles back and forth, these kinds of physical work should be left to adults. Boom! Boom! At this moment, the sound of fighting came from behind. Jun Changshao hurriedly turned around and saw that 2 porters were having a conflict. The 2 of them started arguing at first, then they directly attacked. All kinds of spiritual energy burst and martial arts were displayed. They could be called masters. Hey! Ha! A few children walked past him. They were jogging. From their tense little faces, it could be seen that their strength was definitely at least at Wuzong. In this town where everyone was martial arts and had extraordinary strength, Jun Changshao stood alone on the street, as if he did not fit in with the whole world. After a long time, he calmed down the waves in his heart and turned stiffly to look at the camera. First, he laughed dryly to express his emotions. Then, he hummed dully, "I'm willing to become the angel you love in the fairy tale. I'll open my arms and become wings to protect you." This is not a fairy tale. The system was speechless. This is a real upper realm, a plane that is crueler than the lower realm. At the grocery store, Jun Changshao walked in. He wanted to sell all the animal skins and bones he had obtained on his way here. However, just as he walked to the counter and was about to ask about the story, a martial artist in a tight suit came over first. He put his hand on the table and scolded, "I've been in the mountains for a month and all I've encountered are worthless holy beasts. Old Li, you decide on the price." "Don't." Shopkeeper Li said, "This thing doesn't sell well. Even if I buy it, it'll just rot at home. You'd better go next door and ask." "I knew it." The martial artist sighed and left helplessly. Manager Li was already very familiar with this person. He only said, "Take care," and then turned around to look. Wait, where did the living person who was standing here just now disappear? You cried and told me that fairy tales were all lies. In the alley, there was an out-of-tune and sorrowful singing, which shocked the passers-by so much that their blood was boiling, and some even fell to the ground and twitched. Chapter 1331. It was the first time Jun Changshao entered a town in the upper realm and saw that everyone was a martial artist. Even a 3 to 5-year-old kid was very arrogant. The saddest thing was that he had hunted a lot of prey along the way, planning to use them to make a small fortune, but in the end, they didn't care at all. Fortunately, Go Sheng was a mid-level void-piercing realm cultivator. In the town, he could be considered a top expert. Otherwise, he would probably be squatting in a corner. But this was just a small town. If he went to a bigger city, wouldn't there be many experts? Phew. Jun Changshao took a deep breath and said, "The more powerful this place is, the more it fills me with fighting spirit." After adjusting his mentality, he began to ask passers-by on the street about how to get to Fengqi's Celestial Mountain. "Brother." A middle-aged man who set up a stall waved at him and said with a smile, "I have the most complete map of the upper realm here. It's really an essential thing for a monk to travel." Jun Changshao was interested and said, "How much is it?" "1 magnetite." "I don't have magnetite. Can I replace it with Saint Beast cores?" The upper realm's martial resources for cultivation were magnetite. Usually, it could also be used for currency transactions. The energy contained in it was much stronger than the 9th-grade spirit stones of the mortal planes. "That's fine too," the vendor said, "but you need 10 Saint Beast cores." Jun Changshao took out almost 90% of the Martial Emperor cores he had obtained along the way and exchanged them for a very ordinary map of the upper realm. Although it was quite sad, Gosheng finally understood that he was in the west of the plain and Fengqi's Celestial Mountain was in the east. "Brother," Jun Changshao asked, "how far is Fengqi's Celestial Mountain from here?" "Not far," the vendor said, "about a few hundred mountains and forests will be there." In the mortal plains, people gave directions over a few mountains and forests. Here, it was in the hundreds, and it wasn't far. Jun Changshao didn't waste time. After memorizing the location, he left Stillwater Town and stepped on the road to Fengqi's Celestial Mountain. Here came the problem. Why didn't he use the ancient warship? After using it, he could still fly, but the fuel consumption was frightening. Even after filling it with energy, he could only fly 100 meters before running out of fuel. Under the new plane system, there was no longer a supply of spirit stones used for energy. It was normal for the fuel tank to run out in an instant when one stepped on the gas pedal. As there was no energy source from the upper realm, Jun Changshao could only travel on his flying sword. Although this thing was not very fast, it was at least environmentally friendly and energy efficient. Gosheng rejoiced that he had been teleported to the territory of the mysterious sword sect. At the very least, he had found a means of transportation. If he had been sent to a remote corner, it would have been impossible for him to walk to the Phoenix Perch Immortal Mountain. A few days later, Jun Changshao walked to a mountain range marked on the map. According to the comparison of the speed and distance, it would take about a month to reach the destination. It's a bit slow. Time was too tight, and he was very anxious. Ding! Side quest activated. Here it comes. The first mission after ascending to the upper realm. He opened the interface and clicked on the new side mission. The content was defeat number 04 of the Imperial Sword Sect's experts who came to kill the host. Jun Changshao immediately became alert and said, "The Imperial Sword Mysterious Sect is actually hunting me down." The system was speechless. The spoilers are too crazy. Snatching their flying sword and weapon, it would be strange if I wasn't hunted down. Jun Changshao said seriously, "From the looks of the mission, they should be able to find me." Xiao! Xiao! Several sword lights flew over quickly and slowly stopped above the mountain forest. The Heavenly Eye Hall Master landed on the ground and closed his eyes to sense. He said in surprise, "Elders, that guy's aura suddenly stopped here. Stopped? The leader of the upper void-piercing realm experts frowned. It's very likely that he used some kind of aura-concealing ability. The Heavenly Eye Hall Master deduced. Can we still find him? From the remnant aura, that guy should have just arrived. We can search nearby, maybe he didn't go too far. Search. Just as they were about to take action, they suddenly noticed a young man lying on top of a huge rock in the distance within their field of vision. The distance between the two sides was no more than 100 feet, but the experts of the mysterious sword sect did not feel the slightest bit of aura leaking out from that guy's body. Seventh Elder. The Heavenly Eye Hall Master said in a deep voice, judging from his clothes and appearance, he must be the culprit who severely injured the disciple. That's right. Jun Changshao got up and grinned. It's me. After the side quest appeared, he used the hidden cultivation technique to the extreme and then hid in the dark until he was sure that the 4 people chasing him were only 1 upper-level void-shattering tier and 2 middle-level void-shattering tier. Only then did he walk out openly. Xiao! Xiao! 3 experts came over on their swords and looked at Jun Changshao with cold eyes. However, they were quite surprised. This boy did not reveal any aura around him, so it seemed that he should be proficient in some kind of concealment martial art or ability. Boy. The 7th Elder said indifferently, what's your background? The old man from Taishan opened his eyes from the astrolabe and said seriously, the ominous signs are getting stronger. Chapter 1332. The Taishan loose cultivator was quite famous in the upper realm. It was said that he liked to study Chimenduanjia and the like, and because he usually cultivated on his own mountain, he rarely had any entanglements with the secular world and sects, so his deeds were rarely known. The 7th Elder had heard of this person and knew that he occupied a mountain to cultivate. Perhaps he was quite strong, but he did not take him seriously. The reason was simple. He was from the Sword Mystic Sect. In this kind of plane where sects were the mainstream, loose cultivators could not be compared to them. Moreover, they were from a Sword Dao sect that had reached the Xian level. It was undeniable that Xian sects were the lowest of the 4 levels, but if one knew that there were many forces in the upper realm that had not reached the Xian level, they would understand how awesome it was to have Xian as the prefix. Unless there was a deep hatred between them, lone loose cultivators would not easily provoke sects, because offending one was equivalent to offending several sections. After all, who did not have allies? The Black Rakshasa had also told Jun Changshao that in the upper realm, personal strength was secondary, and connections and relationships were the most important. But now, the Taishan old man, who had nothing to do with the Sword Mystic Sect, had misunderstood them at this moment, and the reason was Jun Changshao, the disciple with quotation marks. As the readers complained, the Taishan celestial mountain was sitting, but Go Sheng was the one to blame. It could not be helped. Who asked him to be a little pretentious and say that when Jun Changshao came to the upper realm to look for him, his words revealed the meaning of "I'll protect you." Today. Not only did Go Sheng come, but he also brought trouble with him. He just did not know if the Taishan old man could handle such a big scene. Pooh! Pooh! In the wilderness, the 2 middle-level void-piercing realm powerhouses of the Sword Mystic Sect held their chests and retreated rapidly, their eyes filled with horror. As outer sect elders, these 2 brothers were much stronger than Lin Lang, but in the end, they were beaten back and injured by Jun Changshao in less than 10 moves. Bang bang bang! In the battle area, the 7th Elder's cultivation was fully unleashed. Sword Chi filled the sky, like missiles bombarding the ground, rolling up dust that covered the sky and the sun. Swish! Jun Changshao rushed out with the sky hegemon spear in hand, the spearhead gathering violent energy and thrusting forward. Ding! The 7th Elder held his sword in front of him. Not only did he block the violent power, but he also took 2 steps back. He said indifferently, I didn't expect that the Taishan cultivators could teach such a capable disciple. Hoo-hoo! Jun Changshao turned his right hand, forming a sweeping motion. Swoosh! Shwa! Whoosh! The seventh elder used a mysterious footwork to dodge the attack. Then, he formed a sword seal and gathered a dense number of sword shadows to attack. Ding ding ding! As the weapons collided, sparks flew everywhere. Fuck! Jun Changshao fought as he retreated, his heart crumbling as he thought, this guy is only at the upper-level void-piercing tier, why do I feel like he's much stronger than the fortress master? The system said, the opponents that the host has encountered recently, regardless of lower level or middle level, are all far stronger than those in the mortal plane. It's not because of the support of sword arts, but because of the cultivation environment. In other words, the void-piercing tier elites in the upper realm are stronger than those in the lower realm? Jun Changshao asked. The system said, at least 30 to 40% stronger. Jun Changshao didn't have time to think, because the seventh elder's attack methods were very rich. All kinds of sword chi and sword moves were displayed, not giving him a chance to breathe at all. The system said, if the host doesn't use his trump card, it'll be difficult to defeat this upper-level void-piercing tier. He didn't reverse the situation. Because Jun Changshao was gradually losing strength in the process of fighting with the seventh elder. Damn it! It was his first time in the upper realm and he had to use his trump card against an upper-level void-piercing tier. In the future, he would be walking on thin ice in the pugilistic world. Ding ding ding! The seventh elder's attacks sped up again. Sword chi came from all directions, hitting Jun Changshao until he was in a difficult situation. Finally, he shouted angrily, "Great Saint, help me!" Hoo! The golden chain armor flashed with golden light, and then the Great Saint, who dared to fight against the heavenly court, appeared, his blood-red cape fluttering in the wind. The seventh elder frowned. This hairy guy who suddenly appeared had a strong aura, making him feel uneasy. Shwa! At this moment, the Great Saint opened his fiery eyes and said impatiently, "Kid, do you want me to deal with trash again?" After not appearing for almost 10 years, the Monkey King was in a very good state. Every hair seemed to emit powerful energy. "Great Saint!" Jun Changshao said, "I have something to do, I'll leave this guy to you." Sigh. The Great Saint sighed and said, "How can my set be worn by someone like you? Monkey King. I've wronged you." After all, he was summoned by Jun Changshao. According to the settings, the Great Saint had to listen to orders, so he used another cool method to summon the Rui Jingu Bang, and then seemingly casually smashed it towards the seventh elder. Boom, the ground suddenly shook violently, and the birds and beasts in the forest far away flew away. When everything calmed down, the seventh elder's entire body sunk into the ground, and he had completely fainted. Seventh elder, the other two Imperial Sword Sect elites were dumbfounded. The rod looked weak, but why did it instantly kill their own elder? Ding! Side mission completed. Obtained 100,000 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 300001. After the seventh elder was defeated, the first mission in the upper realm was successfully completed, but there was no reward. Jun Changshao didn't care, because he was more interested in the spatial ring and the few flying swords scattered in the distance. When he needed a flying tool the most, the Imperial Sword Sect people immediately sent him warmth. This was really a good person. Whoosh! After keeping the spatial ring, Jun Changshao stepped on the top-grade flying sword and left. Needless to say, the speed was much faster than before. He estimated that he would reach Feng Chi Celestial Mountain in about 10 days. Damn it, the two injured mid-level void-piercing realm martial artists of the Imperial Sword Sect could only helplessly and angrily watch Gosheng leave. Of course, they had already used a special secret method to inform the sect of the news. The most important news was that the murderer was a disciple of the Taishian independent cultivator. Paw! In the main hall of the Imperial Sword Sect, the third elder who received the news slammed the table and said angrily, gather everyone and follow me to Fengqi Celestial Mountain. We'll find the Taishan independent cultivator and ask for an explanation. I'm rich. Jun Changshao, who was flying in the sky, retracted his spiritual thoughts from the spatial ring and said ecstatically, I'm rich. He took the spatial ring of the seventh elder of the Imperial Sword Sect. Inside, there were Xian stones that were similar in size to spirit stones but extremely powerful. There were a total of 10,000 of them. This thing should be able to be used as the energy source of the ancient worship, right? Jun Changshao was about to do an experiment when he suddenly came to a sudden stop. A few hundred feet ahead, there were dozens of people in martial attire blocking his way. They had the words Ling Dao carved on their chests and large swords engraved with strange patterns on their backs. The most interesting thing was that they were stepping on swords. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched and said, flying on swords is fine. Go! The leader shouted coldly. Swoosh! 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 The martial artists blocking the way did not say much. They directly took out their large swords and charged over. The anger between their brows was like the hatred of killing their father and stealing their wife. Jun Changshao could tell from the words and weapons on their chests that they were definitely from the Ling Dao sect. So, he hurriedly explained, everyone, I'm not from the Imperial Sword Sect. I'm a disciple of the Taishan Elder. Cut the crap. Eat my sword. Whoosh whoosh. The incomparably sharp sword energy slashed down from the sky, forcing Jun Changshao to take out the sky-dominating spear to defend himself. Boom! 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 Ding! 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 A fierce battle unfolded in midair. After the dust and various kinds of energy gradually dissipated, Jun Changshao was rather depressed as he controlled the top-grade flying sword to leave. As for the attacking Ling Dao sect disciples, they were lying on the ground with bruises all over their faces. Their spatial rings had also been plundered by Go Sheng. Senior brother. Why is this guy using a spear? He's definitely not from the Imperial Sword Sect, the Taishan Elder. Is he the Taishan loose cultivator who studies Chimen Duanjia all year round in Fengqi Celestial Mountain? He stole our spatial rings. No. We can't let him escape. Hurry up and inform the sect. Chapter 1333. The height of a mountain did not matter, as long as there was an immortal. In the upper realm, any mountain with abundant heaven and earth attributes would have the word immortal in its name. For example, Fengqi Mountain, where the Taishan Elder stayed all year round and rarely went out, was definitely 5A in terms of geographical location and natural environment. However, this legend from the falling star continent was a little irritable recently, because whether it was observing the stars at night or deducing divination, he always had a premonition that something big was going to happen. In the past few days, the ominous omen had become more and more intense, making him a little restless. What's going on? The Taishan Elder could not figure it out, so he could only calculate again, and finally peeked into some heavenly secrets, knowing that the uneasiness was due to hatred. That's not right. He said blankly, since I ascended to the upper realm, I have never interacted with the outside world, focusing on the research of formations. When have I ever made enemies? The Taishan Elder wanted to continue calculating, but the heavenly secrets could not be revealed, so he could not accurately know who he had a grudge with. One thing was certain, and that was that the ominous omen was getting more and more intense, as if it would come at any time. This made him shake his head helplessly, saying, it seems that the days of leisure are coming to an end. He sat on the mountain peak, and his turbid eyes suddenly became sharp, like a sword that had been sealed for a long time, and the moment it was unsheathed, it flashed with a sharp luster. The Taishan Elder was not very well known in the upper realm, and it was only known that he liked to study the art of divination, but his true strength was still a mystery, because there were no battle records to check. To describe it in modern terms, he was a coder who stayed at home, thinking about all kinds of codes every day to study new formations. Boom! Boom! Thousands of miles away from the Phoenix Perch Immortal Mountain, Jun Changshao was fighting the people of the High Blade Mystic Sect on his top-grade flying sword. He was on the verge of breaking down. I'm really not from the High Blade Mystic Sect. The system was speechless. You fucking robbed so many spatial rings and obtained a lot of martial arts resources, so what does it matter if you're from the High Blade Sect or not? Damn you! An upper-level void-piercing realm of the High Blade Mysterious Sect shouted angrily, "Hand over our sect's resources." There was no way he was going to hand it over because Jun Changshao never thought that he would be able to spit out the food that he had eaten. Therefore, he could only speed up after forcing the other party to retreat. However, Jun Changshao had underestimated the Xian sect. Because on the way to the Phoenix Perch Immortal Mountain, they were intercepted one after another by various sects and forces wearing different uniforms. In the end, they were forced to use the hidden cultivation technique to sneak forward. To be able to gain a foothold in the upper realm and obtain a Xian-level sect, they must have many friends and allies. When one party was in trouble, others would come to their aid. It was a basic operation. Did you not see? At this moment, in other regions, because of the conflict between the two sects, there were dozens of allies who came to help. The most tragic thing was that Jun Changshao was not a kind person either. If someone tried to stop him, he would definitely resist. He might even beat someone up and lick their spatial ring. As a result, the conflict gradually worsened and eventually led to more sects joining in. Swish! Swish! On the way to the Phoenix Perch Immortal Mountain, major sects could be seen driving flying treasures to search for that damn thief. Conservatively speaking, in these few days, because of Jun Changshao, there were 6 Xian-level sects and 20 to 30 sects with no level. What if they couldn't find him? It didn't matter. Even if he ran away, there was still the Phoenix Perch Immortal Mountain. Let the Taishian loose cultivators pay for all their losses. If the Taishian old man who sat at home all year round knew that he did nothing but took the blame for so many things, he would definitely spit out blood. Swish! In the sky, a sword light flew over. After passing through the primitive forest in the distance, the Phoenix Perch Immortal Mountain is there. Jun Changshao took back the map, his eyes flashing with excitement. In his opinion, as long as he found the Taishian old man, the possibility of bringing his disciples to the upper realm would increase from 0 to. No matter how much, there was still hope. Swish! Swish! However, as soon as he reached the primitive forest, several lights suddenly rushed up from below and surrounded Go Sheng. When the lights dissipated, 4 elders of the sword-wielding sect appeared proudly. Kid! The third elder in the lead said angrily, "Hand over the flying sword." Here. Jun Changshao took out a top-grade flying sword, then poured all his strength into his right hand and threw it away. Swish! An elder rushed over. Swish! Taking this opportunity, Jun Changshao drove the flying sword and escaped under the bombardment of the 3 powerhouses. Then, he stuck out his tongue and fled toward the Phoenix Perch Immortal Mountain. Creak! The door of a building that looked like a Taoist temple was gently pushed open. The Taishian old man who had been suffering from insomnia recently came out and looked at the originally clear sky gradually covered by dark clouds. He said bitterly, "I'm afraid this is a bad omen." Senior Taishian. Suddenly, a voice came from afar. "Come and save me." Hearing this, the Taishian old man was stunned. Then, he thought of something and said in surprise, "It's the voice of the young man who entered the Taishian cave before." Huff huff. A majestic spiritual sense emerged and spread toward the cry for help. In an instant, it captured a young man fleeing on a flying sword with 4 void-piercing realm powerhouses chasing after him. That's not right. The Taishian old man said in disbelief, "It's only been 10 years. How did he ascend to the upper world?" Boom! Boom! In the distant sky, all kinds of sword energy blasted over. Although Jun Changshao dodged a lot, he was still hit on the back. Then, he fled in an extremely sorry state. He raised the loudspeaker and shouted, "Master, come and save me." Huff huff. Huff huff huff. More sword energy blasted over. Judging from the gathering energy, if Jun Changshao used the Great Sage set to resist, he would definitely be injured because of the consumption of a lot of defense power. Damn it! I'll fight it out with you. Go Sheng's eyes were filled with determination. He was about to use the unstoppable blade when he suddenly felt a strong wave of air surging from the mountain in front of him. An old man in a white robe floated behind him and waved his hands lightly, sweeping away all kinds of sword energy. This, Jun Changshao was stunned. Suddenly appearing in a flash and floating in the air without the support of a flying treasure, it all meant that the opponent was very strong. Child. The Taishan old man turned his back to Go Sheng and said with a smile, "I didn't expect us to meet so soon." A familiar voice. Jun Changshao was overjoyed and said, "Say. Master." The Taishan old man frowned slightly and said, "I've been cultivating alone until now and have never taken a disciple." "You, master." Jun Changshao hurriedly said, "I obtained profound martial arts in the Taishan cave and was able to ascend to the upper world. In terms of etiquette, you are my master, and I am your successor." Chapter 1334. When he saw the Taishan old man appear, Jun Changshao had a plan in his heart. "I'm definitely going to hug this person's thigh." Bah! The system spat out a mouthful of saliva. Previously, when Anyo took the initiative to present the Taishan Sutra, the host was quite disgusted. Now that he saw that the host was powerful, he immediately went into hugging mode. His behavior was simply shameless. The Taishan old man said, "You've cultivated the two martial arts I left behind. Logically speaking, you can indeed be considered a cross-generational disciple." Jun Changshao hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Master, please accept this disciple's bow." Swish! Swish! At this moment, the four elders of the Imperial Sword Sect caught up. The third elder in the lead said coldly, "You're the Taishan cultivator." "That's right." The Taishan old man smiled. The third elder said, "It seems that you've broken through to the revolving core realm." "I was lucky to break through." From the Taishan old man's words, it was not difficult to tell that he was a very low-key person. Unfortunately, the guy behind him was an extremely flamboyant and troublemaker. He had only been in the upper realm for a month, and he had already caused a lot of trouble. "Humph," the third elder snorted and said, "Your disciple trespassed into the territory of the Imperial Sword Sect, injured our disciples, and even stole the flying sword and weapon. As the master, you have to give an explanation, right?" In terms of strength, the four of them were definitely far inferior to the Taishan old man. However, as a sword sect, it was not as if there were no revolving core realm experts at home. Moreover, he was in the right this time. The Taishan old man was a little conflicted. He did not explain that this was not his disciple. Since this person came from the Falling Star continent, he had to help him. "Bullshit!" Jun Changshao said loudly, "I accidentally entered your territory when I lost my way. Moreover, I took the initiative to apologize at that time. You still refused to let it go and insisted on hurting me. I had no choice but to defend myself." Indeed. Logically speaking, both sides were in the right and wrong at the beginning. However, the problem now was not that they had entered the land without permission. Instead, it was that Go Sheng had snatched their flying swords and weapons from behind. Taishan Sanren. The third elder glared at Jun Changshao and said, "Make your stance clear." He had no interest in arguing with a disciple. The crux of the matter was his master's attitude. "If you ask me." The Taishan elder was silent for a while and said, "You disciples of the Imperial Sword Sect can't beat him because your skills are not as good as his. 4 elders of your sect came to hunt him down personally. This is a bit like bullying the weak. The last 4 words were spoken in an unyielding manner. If you ascend to the upper realm one day, you can come to Feng Chi Celestial Mountain to look for me. This old man has ascended to the upper realm for a long time. I've barely made a name for myself. It shouldn't be a problem to protect someone like you who has just ascended. This was what the old man from Taishan had said in the Taishan Immortals Cave. Therefore, he was here today to fulfill his promise and protect Jun Changshao, who had just ascended to the upper realm. Of course. At this time, he finally understood why there had been bad omens recently. It turned out that it wasn't him, but the young man from the same plane. Master. Gou Sheng was deeply moved. Sure enough, he was right to come to him. This was a responsible senior. This was a legend of the falling star continent. The faces of the 4 elders of the Imperial Sword Sect turned ugly. An old man who spent all his time in Feng Chi Celestial Mountain was actually so domineering. The 3rd elder said in a low voice, "Do you mean that regardless of right or wrong, you will protect your disciple? Isn't it normal for a master to protect his disciple?" The Taishan elder asked back. Of course, he wasn't proving that he was Gou Sheng's disciple. In terms of etiquette, it was natural for a master to protect his disciple when he was in trouble. But the Imperial Sword Sect had already recognized them as master and disciple. Sigh. Gou Sheng had thrown the blame away beautifully, and the Taishan elder had also accepted it beautifully. Good, good, good. The 3rd elder said coldly, "Since you insist on protecting your disciple regardless of right or wrong, then don't blame us for being rude." Attack? That was impossible. After all, he was a rebirth core expert. What should they do? He could only use the method of calling to get more people. 4 of you. The Taishan elder said, "I still have to cultivate. Forgive me for not seeing you off." Before he could finish, he frowned. Because in the sky outside Feng Chi Celestial Mountain, there were at least 300 to 500 people flying over. Master. Jun Changshao said telepathically, "These are all here to cause trouble for me." The Taishan elder was dumbfounded. From their clothes, he judged that they were from at least 20 or 30 sections. It seemed like a group of heroes were gathering at Feng Chi Celestial Mountain. He broke down and said, "What did you do?" Humph. The experts of the High Blade sect were the first to rush over and said coldly, "Taishan cultivator, your disciple has stolen countless resources from our sect. If you don't give us an explanation today, we will not rest until we kill you." That's right. The martial artists of the other sects shouted in unison. In the beginning, they didn't have much conflict with Gou Sheng. However, their interspatial rings were stolen one after another, so it slowly developed into a situation where everyone wanted to kill him. Master. Jun Changshao said telepathically, "I'll leave my safety to you." The Taishan elder almost spat out blood. Although he was an old shut-in, he could tell that this guy must have done something bad outside as his disciple. In the end, it's all my fault. Everyone, the Taishan elder pointed at Jun Changshao and said seriously, "He's not my disciple. I have nothing to do with him." It wasn't difficult to fight the High Blade sect head-on, but there were so many of them, at least 5 or 6 of them. Who could withstand that? Jun Changshao was on the verge of breaking down. He said that he could protect himself if he came to him, but when he saw so many people, he immediately backed down. Master. Go Leftover clutched his chest and said in a heartbroken voice, "You disappoint me too much. Don't call me master." The Taishan elder roared, "I don't even have a disciple like you." Indeed, the 2 of them were not master and disciple. However, to outsiders, it sounded like the disciple had caused a lot of trouble and the master had broken off their relationship on the spot. Humph, the 3rd elder sneered, "Taishan cultivator, your disciple has made a mistake. As his master, you must take responsibility. It's useless even if you break off the relationship now." Based on the other party's stubbornness just now, he was sure that the two of them were master and disciple. That's right. Hurry up and tell your disciple to hand over the resources he stole. If he doesn't hand them over, we'll raise this phoenix perch immortal mountain to the ground. The martial artists of the various sects glared at him. They had their sects behind them, so they didn't fear a lone cultivator who had reached the rebirth core realm. The Taishan elder's current mood could be described as a dog. He understood. So this was what the ominous omen meant earlier. The so-called grudge wasn't just one person, but dozens of sections. The most infuriating thing was that he had never interacted with them in his life. It was all because that guy pretended to be his disciple. Master. Jun Changshao leaned over and said solemnly, "Today, we'll work together." Before he could finish, the Taishan elder had already slung his luggage over his shoulder and cupped his hands. The mountains will not change, and the rivers will flow forever. We'll meet again in the martial world. Swish! He slipped away. Chapter 1335. Jun Changshao was dumbfounded. Because the Taishan elder who was supposed to protect him had slipped away. The worst thing was that he had even packed his luggage. He was definitely prepared to run away at any time. That was right. After the Taishan elder realized that the ominous sign was getting stronger, he packed his luggage early and went on a trip. This was preparing for a rainy day. This was foresight. However, as soon as he slipped away, Jun Changshao was left behind, and he had to face several hundred high-level and middle-level void-piercing realm martial artists alone. Kid! The Taishan elder's voice rang in his ear. Ascending to the upper realm is equivalent to a new beginning. No matter what trouble you encounter in the future, you must first rely on yourself to resolve it. Fuck you! Jun Changshao roared in his heart. You said you would protect me. Cursing was cursing, but running was still necessary, so he immediately controlled the flying sword. However, he was already surrounded by the major sections. There was no way out. The flying sword sect and the soaring blade sect had a feud. As long as the two sides met, they would definitely fight without saying much. However, for the same goal today, they pretended not to see each other. It's fine if Master runs away. The third elder said coldly, it's fine as long as you're here. Kakik. Standing on the flying sword, Jun Changshao laughed strangely, and his eyes became more and more serious. He said, you bunch of trash want to keep Jun here. It didn't matter if the Taishan elder ran away. He still had various trump cards, such as, whoosh. He gently raised his hand, and a pocket-sized knife appeared out of thin air. This strongest trump card was not used when dealing with the mortal universe's biggest boss, the Fortress Master. Today, Jun Changshao planned to try it in the upper realm. Tisk, seeing the model of a toy knife, the martial artists of the major sects all snorted. Kid. The third elder said coldly, stop pretending here. If you want to live, quickly hand over the things you stole. Sorry. Jun Changshao pinched the handle of the knife with 2 fingers and said, I don't have the things, but I have a life. Go Sheng's principle was that he would not hand over the things he got with his own ability even if he died. Everyone. The third elder said in a deep voice. Let's go together and chop this guy to death. Then, all the resources will be distributed according to the losses. Okay. The martial artists of the major sects had no objections. They had been quite wary of old man Taishan, but now that he had abandoned his disciple and fled, there was nothing to worry about. Go! Hoo. In an instant, hundreds of void-piercing realm cultivators all unleashed their cultivation. Jun Changshao, who was surrounded, was expressionless, but he was praying in his heart, I hope that the third form of the unstoppable blade is still useful in the upper realm. Otherwise, I can only use the power of the stone statues. To kill immortals, to kill immortals, to be to kill, to kill, to be killed, to kill immortals. The opening talisman was in his hand. However, just as the experts from the various sects were about to press down on him and he was about to crush it, a violent wave of air suddenly surged out from behind him. Boom! The sound of a powerful explosion was heard, and the space began to distort. As for the dozens of martial artists who attacked, they were all sent flying. In his field of vision, a huge thing that seemed to be made of bamboo armor appeared out of thin air. A voice came from behind him. "Kid, leave this to me. You hide quickly." The Taishan elder. He did not run away alone. Jun Changxiao's eyes widened as if they would pop out of their sockets at any time. What did he see? He saw that the huge thing was made of bamboo pieces like a robot. The Taishan elder sat in the cockpit covered by a barrier and put his hands on a small light array. Transformers? Dragon Fighters? Gundam? Iron Man? Don't be in a daze. The Taishan elder said in a deep voice, "Hide quickly. Otherwise, when my bamboo mountain #1 moves, you will be in trouble too." Shwa! Jun Changxiao hurriedly controlled the flying sword to land on a mountain peak in the distance and said in disbelief, "High-tech." The system said, "This thing has all kinds of arrays on it." Jun Changxiao also noticed, and his eyes suddenly became excited. The Taishan elder could play with arrays to such an extent, maybe he had a way to make the sect rise. The martial artists of the various sects were also stunned at this moment. Not only did they not expect the Taishan elder to turn back, but they also did not expect that he would control a strange equipment that was at least 30 to 50 feet in size and looked like a fierce beast. Especially when the punch just now sent more than 10 void-piercing realm martial artists flying, it showed that the combat power was quite terrifying. The bamboo mountain #1 was a type of combat armor that could both attack and defend, created by the Taishan elder with all kinds of arrays inside. Even if Go Sheng was thrown in to control it, it could still explode with great power. Remember, don't provoke a technical geek. Because the means he uses to bully you may not only be martial arts. Of course, this kind of high-tech mecha also had its flaws. Not only did it need arrays to support it, but it also needed a powerful energy source to drive it. "Kid," the Taishan elder said telepathically, "this is the first time this old man is using the bamboo mountain #1 in an actual battle. You are fully responsible for all the energy consumption." "No problem." Jun Changxiao said straightforwardly. This kind of ancient-style combat armor was really cool. He really wanted to see how powerful it was. The Taishan elder, who was inside the defensive barrier, looked at everyone present and said coldly, "Phoenix Perch Mountain is this old man's place of cultivation. You all flew in without saying anything. Aren't you a bit too much?" Whoosh! As he spoke, his spiritual thoughts had already communicated with the array. The tall and mighty bamboo mountain #1 swung its right fist, and the explosive power instantly shook the space, causing ripples similar to water waves. Boom! The seemingly clumsy fist fiercely sent more than 10 void-piercing realm martial artists flying, and the violent energy shook the others to their core. Retreat, retreat, retreat! In an instant, hundreds of martial artists from various sects made the most correct choice, and that was to escape as quickly as possible. Taishan unaffiliated cultivators. As the third elder fled, he said angrily, "Our sword mystic sect will not let this go." Bang! Before he finished speaking, he directly crashed into the defensive barrier, and his entire face caved in. The martial artists from various sects were not spared, and collectively crashed into the defensive array that suddenly appeared. Only when they looked from afar did they realize that the entire Phoenix Perch Mountain was completely covered by the egg-shaped defensive barrier. "Is this a place where you can come and go as you please?" The Taishan elder flew over in the bamboo mountain #1, and then raised his fists to launch a storm of attacks. Bang, 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 fuck. Jun Changxiao was stunned and said, "Awesome." After 15 minutes, more than 300 martial artists from more than 30 sects fell to the ground with bruises and tattered clothes. Caw! The mecha made of piled bamboo hung in the air, and then made a pose with its hands crossed, and the 4 big black words, Bamboo Mountain No. 1, appeared on the screen. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.